Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Board of Education for the Appleton Area School District. My name is Kay Eggert, and first roll call of fellow board members. Peng Tao.
Here.
Nick Ross.
Here.
Pack.
Here.
Chris Sauter.
Here.
Ed Ruffalo.
Here.
And James Bacon.
Here.
All right, please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And again, as a reminder for anyone who may be joining us remotely, materials for tonight's meeting can be found on board docs, which can be linked to through the district website. I am going to ask if board members have any requests to remove any of the consent agenda items for separate consideration tonight. Seeing none, then I will ask for a motion to approve tonight's agenda as written.
So moved. Second.
Any questions on that? Okay, then all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we are going to move next on the agenda. We have an opportunity for public input. We do have some individuals who have signed up to speak. So forgive my formality. This is just routine. I have to say a few little words, highlights from board policy 187 and its rule. As a reminder, individuals may speak for up to 3 minutes. An individual who's speaking on behalf of a group may speak up to 5 minutes, and we will have a timer running that Kay will have running so you can keep track of your allotted time. We will adhere to the time limits, and please know that any comments exceeding the allotted time may be submitted to the board in writing. The board respectfully requests that speakers refrain from presenting comments that introduce complaints or concerns that are directed toward or identify individual staff members or individual students. The district has a variety of alternative procedures for appropriately addressing such concerns. And then speaker retains all liability for his or her comments and conduct. And the Wisconsin Open Meetings Law allows only brief discussion of topics that are not listed on the agenda, and therefore we may not be able to fully address comments that are shared tonight. So with that, the first speaker on the list is Coriotis. And there will be a microphone, so just please make sure that's on, and we'll get our timer going.
Going? Okay. All right. Good evening, Board of Education members, administration. My name is Coriotis. I'm the president of the Appleton Education Association. I'm also a graduate of Appleton East High School. I dragged my wife to Appleton, I don't know, 15 years ago. She teaches at Ferber, and we have 2 redheaded kids who also graduated from Appleton East. So I'm a proud community member. I've grown up here. I live here. And it's my pleasure to serve. A couple of weeks ago, the board had a really interesting discussion about paid time off. And I have to admit that after I watched the video, I was a little bit disappointed in the decision not to consider PTO for next year. I was on the committee, full disclosure. We put in a year of work, and we were heavily invested in this policy change. I truly believe it'll be better for our members, better for our staff, better for our district if and when it is implemented. I did appreciate the questions that were asked at the meeting. It showed that the board cares about our employees, cares about our district, and asked really good questions about how it would impact their professional lives and their personal lives, especially questions about bereavement and sick leave. Shows empathy for our employees. It shows care for our district. Although I was disappointed, I understand the decision. 54% approve of PTO, 54% of staff when they were surveyed. We all hope for a higher number. Survey came out, more information came out. Some people didn't have a chance to maybe change their answers. And maybe it would have been higher, maybe not, we don't know. But when I thought about it, 54% probably isn't enough to push forward a huge change like this for our staff, our students, for our community. You don't want to impose a change like that when you don't have full support and understanding from your employees. Our committee was in full agreement. We saw PTO as a good change. I think everybody understands that the timeline got a little bit crunched at the end. Maybe we didn't have our chance to make our case, and I hope that it comes forward next year. We have severe constrictions thanks to our state legislature. It makes budget decisions very difficult, and I do appreciate that you take the time and understanding to dig into not only PTO, but other issues as well. The AAA has worked for a long time to reach out to our legislators. We've been to Madison several times. Some of us have seen Senator Ellis with the chalkboard, trying to do the math and how that all works. And we do what we can to change their minds, to show them that public education needs more money. I'm here for an obvious reason tonight. We're all here for an obvious reason tonight. And we hope that you consider with the same attention and detail as you did PTO. Thank you.
Next, Chad Hendricks.
Board President Egger, before I begin my remarks, I have a handout to the district, to the board.
Do you have, is your mic is on, right? Sorry.
Green, it's on, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Chad Endress, graduate at Appleton West, 91, went to Wilson, went to Highlands, and went to Lincoln Elementary, now known as Dunlap Elementary, where I learned, and this is the most important part, to tie my shoe. Becoming a regular speaker here. Eventually I'll hammer home these points. I come because of the district's financial situation, which I believe is very strong. And I think the situation I'm going to be facing next year is not whether I'm going to get a pay increase or not. It's simply how much of a pay cut I'm going to get. Teaching in America is a difficult job. We're having a hard time getting people to want to become teachers. We're having a hard time getting people to continue to be teachers. And we're having a hard time getting people to not want to retire and get out of the occupation as soon as possible. And so therefore, I come before this group and say, if you value teachers, then I hope you can find the resources to match how much we're valued. The handout that I gave you is a comparison of where the district has been spending money. The last 20 years, it shows the amount of administrators that have been hired since the year 1999. And I use 1999. This is all on the DPI website, both set of numbers. I use 99 because in 99, we had 15,000 students, which is approximately what I have now. Same number of schools, 23 schools back in that time period. Same number of teachers, but the number of district level administrators have gone from 40 to 69. This website off of DPI gives the amount of benefits and pay for those administrators. And I'll say this, they truly deserve to get paid what they deserve. I think they're worth it. The question is this where the board wishes to invest their time and energy and money and resources? Because as former board member Jim Clemens said, is the juice worth the squeeze? How much money do you want to put into any one of us? If you think the teachers are not worth it, then don't give us a pay raise, don't give us equal to inflation, give us nothing if you wish. But I believe the teachers are worth it, and I think that investment is the best choice for the community. And that's why I come before you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, Sandy Martin.
Hello, greetings everyone. My name is Sandy Martin and I'm speaking as an individual, but also as an employee of the Appleton Area School District. I'm here today advocating for the additional raise for our actual salaries versus the base. We ask our students to educate themselves and make informed decisions. So to this extent, I am doing what I can to encourage and advocate to retain quality employees. So the first question is, do we have the money for it? Some would say no. I personally am not the one managing the money, but I'm around others who are crunching the numbers. I hear as other union members have about savings from individuals retiring and being replaced at a lower rate. The Fund 10, which is one of the healthiest in the state, and about additional positions over the years in various roles. Additional positions that possibly could be funded by grant money, as I've seen in the past. I know personally, like the ATEC program in Appleton West just recently got $135,000 because they applied for it and showed merit in using it. It was from AMCOR and it helped ATEC, and eventually West students earn more industry recognized credentials. So retaining quality employees matters. In the meantime, the question to ask is, are we worth it? The additional raise based on our actual salaries. So I would say yes, yes, yes. Is the graduation rate important to you? If the answer is yes, then it's worth it. So I'm but just one individual, a special ed teacher at Appleton West. During my 5 years there, 100% of the students on my caseload who started with me freshman year and finished senior year graduated. Not all the students took the traditional path, as some graduated from Challenge Academy, GPS, Higher Ground, or ATEC. This couldn't have been done without the support and collaboration of so many people who invested time and talents building relationships and understanding the whole child. So again, retaining quality employees matters. So we are asking for a fair wage to meet the cost of living, rising inflation costs, and which are competitive with other districts, which will pay us for our expertise. I can review other school district salaries and see that my 16 years of experience as a teacher, I would be at the top of a pay scale in the neighboring district after 13 years of teaching. I would be at $86,000 with pension and benefits, in addition to a one-time stipend of $2,000 for my master's and $1,500 for my year's experience. This is about $20,000 more than I currently make, and it would be on, on a yearly basis. So needless to say, retaining quality employees matters. This isn't a referendum item. The district has the money to do this, from retirement savings, Fund 10, and ongoing reassessment of the effectiveness and funding of additional staff hired over the years. We are worth the investment, and I ask you to reconsider giving us a raise based on our actual salaries. So thanks for your time.
Thank you. Next, Tony Martin. Just wait, before you start, Tony, it says that you are speaking on behalf of a group. So do you want 5 minutes? Otherwise you can have 3. Okay. That's how the form was. I just wanted to check. I didn't know if you were thinking you needed 5. Okay.
No, I'm just gonna reflect on a lesson that I learned, and one of my first lessons I learned in college. You better love all your students because you're not gonna like them all the time. Loosely translated, you go back to the drawing over and over and over again, whatever that may take, and you don't give up on it. So I get it. We are all working our tails off, trying to be, we got a complex list of problems, and I just know that when it comes to teachers and retaining teachers and what they're worth and all that, it's not easy because there's it's a balancing act. But I'm reminded of what in Mr. Holland's opus, do it again, go back to the drawing board. So I guess that's all I'm going to say. When we face hardships with challenges with students, we never give up. We always are going back to the drawing board and figuring out what it takes to make it work and make sure that person is successful. So that's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Carrie Williamson.
Good evening. I'm a paraprofessional and I've been in the district for 18 years. And way back when, us paraprofessionals used to work for a lower wage because the benefits outweighed all of that and made it worth it. We're at a point right now that it's not that case anymore. we have a wage that is not even a livable wage. That scares me and worries me. I'm married. I have my husband's wage to fall back on if something happens. But I tell you, if I were trying to make it on my own, there's no way I could live on this. I love my job. I love working with students. That is so important in my life. It has been my whole life. For me to say that after 18 years, I don't even make $18 an hour is really sad. It's hard for me to admit that out loud and say that to people. There's not really a lot looking at the benefits and the wages where we're at right now as our group for us to feel good about recommending people to come to the district, because it's not a livable wage. And it's hard. I mean, if you look at the paraprofessional group, and we're kind of unique in the way that we work with students during all their unstructured time. We have more time to connect with students individually than what teachers would like to have that time at different moments. And that is really highly important for helping our students become successful and graduate, because we make those connections. So we may not have the degrees and everything that the teachers do, but we do have important, valuable stuff to offer. And I am just pleading with you, after 18 years of seeing the changes that have happened through the years, we're facing times right now where we're gonna lose a lot of paraprofessionals if we don't step our wages up and become more comparable to other districts and just give us a livable wage. And that's really, I just want to plead with you to please really consider bringing our wages up to something that's livable. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any other people who had signed up, but you can still speak. Is there anyone else that would like to share some comments with the board? It's not too late. Okay, then I'm not seeing anyone, so then I will close the public input, but I do want to say, you know, we appreciate everyone coming in and sharing. The topic of compensation obviously is on the agenda tonight, later on the agenda. And the points that you've brought up, we will be having discussion. And I believe that many of these points will be discussed at that time. I also want to acknowledge that the board has received a number of letters over the last couple of days from educators and other staff members, and all those letters have been sent out to board members. And so we will be having in-depth discussion, you know, in the meeting, but it's under board business for compensation. So thank you for all of that. Then we are going to move on. Number 6 on our agenda, we're going to move to 6B, school and student services update. The first item, recognition of American Councils for International Education, and Mike Hernandez is going to fill us in on this. I think Mike is joining us remotely. Okay. Oh, he's not remote. He's live in person. I think you need a mic. Perfect.
I'm sorry. Yes, at our last meeting, we brought this forward. We had stated that we had did the pilot or the first implementation this past year. Everything went wonderful, and we'd like to add them officially to our board or to our list.
And so we need to have an update on the policy. And that, so it's in the rule. It was pointed out, did you bring up, Chris, a slight, go ahead.
Just a quick question. In the document, it indicates that requests for program recognition will be made through the Assistant Superintendent School Services. So would that, I don't know that we have that title anymore, so would that need to be changed in the rule? I'm not sure. Asking the question.
Yeah, that would be me. That is my position.
That's your title? Okay. It's different than what's listed on the
It's
the web
through
page.
or for secondary schools, primarily high school,
Okay.
but that is under my scope.
Okay.
I think the question was, should we just change, it's a non, I mean, I think it's a non-substantive change, but as long as we're adding this organization to the list, should we just say assistant superintendent or secondary level?
Yes.
Was the question. And I think it was, as long as we're doing those edits, it was brought up as just to be complete, so.
My only thought is, so the Assistant Superintendent of School Services is a overarching title
Oh.
for either Mike, Sherry Garvey, Nan Buno, or Ebony Grice. So if we make it more specific, there's more likelihood we'll have to change it somewhere down the road. So we like it a little more general.
Going by what's on our website,
Yeah.
and so, thank you.
Okay, then we'll just go for adding the group to the.
Thank you so much.
All right, and then we will be voting on this under the superintendent consent, unless there's any other questions from board members on this. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And then we also now are looking at a policy update to 453.4. The policy on the rule, Mr. Hargis.
Yeah, so during our last board meeting held on June 10th, this item was presented as an item of information at that time and it was presented by Laura Jackson. Laura is on vacation this week, so I am speaking to this item. And so if you recall, we're recommending a slight revision to this policy. It has been written as 7 through 12 as it pertains to middle and high school, but now that 6th grade is being added to middle school, we just want to add 6 through 12 instead of 7 through 12. And then the second change is we have in that policy that, and I don't know if I pronounced it correctly, naloxone. And so we have that available, and in our policy, it says in our offices, but we now have it available as of last year in a specific box that's located next to our AED. So we just want to add that language into this policy as well. So both of these very small changes were mentioned and brought to you last meeting as item of information. So they will be up for your vote under my consent agenda.
Any questions on that? Okay, thank you. And then we also have middle school ELA materials adoption on the agenda. Dr. Harrison.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. As you may recall, during the June 10th board meeting, Kelly Leopold, our Director of Secondary Humanities, shared with you updates proposed in ELA for grades 6, 7, and 8, which would also include future material purchases to support the updated curriculum. This is part of the superintendent consent agenda as item 8D, and it is our recommendation to be approved. Any questions?
Don't see any in the boardroom. And as you already stated, we did discuss this more deeply last meeting. And so I think we're good then. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will move to 6C, personnel services update from Julie King.
All right, good evening. Personnel Services does have 3 items for board's consideration on the superintendent's consent agenda. Those are items 8E through G that consist of 5 new educator hires, 2 educator contract changes for next school year, and 3 educator resignations. Any questions on these items?
All right, thank you. So we will move to number 7 on the agenda, the board's consent agenda, which is just one set of meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please. Caitlin.
Nick Ross,
Aye.
Jason Kolpak.
Aye.
Peng Tao,
Aye.
James Bacon,
Aye.
Ed Ruffalo,
Aye.
Chris Sauter,
Aye.
and Kay Hager.
Aye. Okay, next, the superintendent's consent agenda. Mr. Hargis.
Superintendent's consent agenda includes 7 items for your consideration. The first 2 items were reported on by Mike Hernandez during the school services update. The next item C, I reported on during the student services update. The next item D was reported on by Dr. Steve Harrison during the school services update. And then items E, F, and G were reported on by Julie King during the personal services update. And I recommend approval of these 7 items, 8A through G.
I'll make a motion to approve the superintendent's consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please, Kim.
Ed Ruffalo,
Aye.
James Bacon,
Aye.
Nick Ross,
Aye.
Kay Eger,
Aye.
Chris Sauter,
Aye.
Ping Tao,
Aye.
and Jason Kolbeck.
Aye.
Okay, next we will move to reports. Moving to 9B, School and Student Services Report. We have a number of different items under here. First, the Birth to 3 program evaluation. Welcome, Dr. Harrison and Pam Fransky.
Right, again, good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure to be joined by our Birth to 3 team today, led by Pam Fransky. As a reminder, as far as the context behind tonight's program evaluation report, part of OE11, which looks at the operational expectations of instructional programs, has an indicator that approximately every 6 years, we will do a program evaluation within each of our various content areas. In the past, we'd shared with you the program evaluations, both for English language arts, as well as we had a completed EL program evaluation last year. This year, as part of that timeline, we had a program evaluation for the Birth to 3 program. And so Pam Fransky, who has been our Title I coordinator, as well as coordinator of a Birth to 5 Even Start Family Literacy, as well as homeless and foster care in the district, has led that work. And so this evening, she's going to introduce her team and share with you the results of that program evaluation. So with that, I will turn things over to Pam.
Ladies, ain't doing this by myself.
I mean, we can pull some more chairs up to the table. I mean, come on up.
Yeah.
Maybe we can. Great.
Thank you for this opportunity. Let's see. We put it into a little PowerPoint to kind of give you an idea of what we're all about. Which button do I push? Okay. All right. If you see on the screen, our program evaluation team was myself. And as Steve said, I have been for the last 25 years a teacher, and I am also currently the Appleton Area School District Title I coordinator. I'm the Birth to 5 outreach coordinator. I'm the Even Start Family Literacy coordinator, and I'm also your homeless and foster care director. I have with me today Michelle Campbell, who is one of our Birth to 5 resource coordinators. Caitlin Emmerich was another one of our Even Start teachers. She was unable to be here today. Christy George is one of our Title I preschool teachers, but Christy has also been on several of these teams over the past couple of years. Julie Krzaska is our Parents as Teachers Family Support Specialist. And then Macy Shaw was unable to join us as well. She's part of our Early Childhood Special Education team. I just wanted to remind you that this is a birth through age 3 program evaluation. So first of all, these were the objectives that we had when we did the program evaluation. We wanted to do a brief overview for you of what those Appleton Area School District Birth through age 3 programming has been, and then those parent caregiver education items that we are at the top of our list. It's also an evaluation of supports and collaboration beyond early intervention. And through our evaluation, we came up with 3 big ideas, and that was continuity, value, impact, and leadership. And then we have a few recommendations. We're not going to go through everything step by step. We are going to offer you little snippets of this, and then you will all have access to the actual evaluation that we did. So what do we have in the Appleton Area School District? We have Appleton Even Start Family Literacy. We have Birth to 5 outreach. We have early childhood special education. We have 3 to 5-year-old developmental screenings and a diagnostic center. We have parents as teachers home visiting throughout the district. And we have Title I 3-year-old preschool. And that's a new one. Okay. So Appleton Even Start Family Literacy has been a collaboration for now we just ended our 32nd year. It's between us and Fox Valley Technical College. It provides a language-rich environment while moms and dads go to school for either their second language to learn English or for their GED, or maybe even take some classes to get to another program at the tech. Their infant, toddlers, and preschoolers are going to school. And that is provided through the Appleton Area School District. Our programs run 4 days per week. We have an AM and a PM session, and each family is assigned a home visitor. And the little QR codes you see on there, also, if you go back, you will go right to our website and it can give you more information about each one of these. Birth to 5 outreach. This is our purpose. Birth to 5 has been around for almost 18 years. It is to connect and engage families with young children ages 0 to 5. Gives opportunities within their school and local community to support school readiness, healthy development. We offer an inclusive network of family care services, school information, community support. We build positive relationships with families, and our goal is really truly to empower our young families. What does Birth to 5 offer in our community? This is a laundry list, and it sometimes goes beyond all of this. They do welcome visits or home visits. They do weekly play groups and monthly events. You'll see on social media, we have our Birth to 5 Facebook page. We do community and monthly emails to over 4,000 families. We have the Remind app for some of our new families. We support the developmental screenings. 2 people currently on our team are developmental screeners. We offer summer programming. So if you'd like to come, it's this Thursday. I can't remember what park, Schaefer Park, this Thursday from 9 to 10. On average, we've been averaging almost 100 to 150 adults and children at these park programming. They support developmental screenings again, community partner collaborations. We have a list of those as well. And we provide parent education, and we also are the catalyst for Take 5 to Help You Thrive, which is delivering bags within our book bags within our area hospitals, and all the superintendents in the area help support that. In early childhood special education for 3-year-olds, we have Highlands, Edison, Franklin, and Johnston. And then we have Columbus, which is something that we, Michelle Renoski and I ventured out on. We are one and only in the state of Columbus. It has an integrated program. It's about 20 to 22 students. And it has early childhood special ed students as well as Title I. We have an AM and a PM classroom. We have itinerant services throughout the community, and we have birth through age 3, curriculum standards, teaching strategies, gold, and creative curriculum, just like our 4K. So all of our Even Start Family Literacy, infants, toddlers, and preschoolers follow the birth through age curriculum and standards, as well as they provide that teaching strategies, gold assessments with students, infant through 3, as well as utilize their creative curriculum as a resource. Developmental screenings and diagnostics. There are about 4 to 5 screenings per month for 3 to 5-year-olds. They have a universal screening that they do with birth through 3 out of Outagamie and Winnebago County, early intervention twice a year. And then it gives us the connection of those families to our programming, to birth to 5, outreach, to home visiting, to Title I preschool. And I'm not moving these fast enough, so just give me a moment here. This year we had 264 screenings, 29 screening events, and they went from August to March. And that doesn't even count all of the ages and stages questionnaires that our teachers do and and our home visitors do for screenings as well. One that is dear and near to my heart is Title I preschool. Columbus is an integrated program, like I said before, with 20 to 22 students in the morning and in the afternoon. Johnston, where Christy is at, has 15 in the morning and 15 in the afternoon. And yes, we have a wait list currently, or we did this past year. We're hoping to get those numbers up this coming year. We've got a pretty full class over at the Columbus integrated already, but Johnston, we just need a few more to get it to where we want it to be. We have AM and PM classes. Our teachers have AM and PM classes 4 days a week, and then Friday's their day for PLC, PD, as well as doing some home visits or maybe do some family engagement with their students. We also follow the birth through age 3 curriculum and standards, teaching strategies gold and creative curriculum. Yeah, wonderful group. Parents as teacher home visiting. This is the thing that a lot of people don't know about. Every one of our families and even Start Family Literacy are assigned a home visitor. So each family gets a home visitor. And then we also, because it is funded through Title I, we can target families throughout the district. We get families from our Title I preschool, birth to 5 outreach, and it is essentially providing the parents as teacher curriculum with professionals that have gone through the foundational 1 and 2 training. And we try to choose families that are in those Title I school areas, which we have 13 schools. So it's around those attendance areas, because we know that if we touch them early, 0 to 3, and we get them in our other programs, and then we get them into one of our Title I schools, that continued support is going to continue. Parents and Teachers has been our home visiting was a collaboration with Parent Connection, Family Services. But this year we went out on a limb, and we were not able to continue those services with them because they did not have a person to continue it. So that's when we were able to get Julie Krzaska to support the home visitors. We currently have 5 home visitors. 2 of them are retired teachers in our district that have provided Title I preschool. And we have 2 of our interpreters who also have both have a 4-year degree. All of these people that I'm talking about right now, even our hourly staff, all have either a bachelor's or a master's. Here are all just a few of the community collaborations. In my role as coordinator for Birth to 5 Outreach, I've probably spoke or worked with or presented at many of these places, or we do programming with them, resource fairs. I'm currently on the Pillars board. So these are just a few of the things that are the collaborations we have in the community. So our evaluation and recommendations. We looked at 4 areas. We looked at program and implementation information. We looked at staffing and professional learning. We looked at engaging families and community, and we looked at program performance and results. Through that, you can see the report. It's about 3-4 pages long, but these are the big ideas that the team came up with. And that would be continuity, value, impact, and leadership. One thing in continuity, we said it starts with us, and how do we ensure that our work with this population is known, understood, and accessible. Each of these programs feeds into each other and follows the pathway into our elementary schools. So we are the cornerstone programs to get our families engaged from the minute that they have their first child. Recommendation for continuity in that area is to survey families that participated in Birth to 5 programming across all of these programs. Currently, even Start Family Literacy does follow students all the way up to 5th grade, but we recommend that maybe we do that with these programs as well. We also said that look to student success between programs and highlight that early intervention. What would it look like if there were not these opportunities, and develop a repository of resources for our families? The next one was value and impact. Credibility of birth through age 3 may not portray to the public the impact of the work. We realized through our evaluation that the purpose of these programs may not be widely understood, even by our own staff. The complexity behind each program may be misguided, that is just a perception of just play. We all know that play is a child's way of learning. We wondered if district-wide there's awareness in how we could move forward and that community and school type understanding. Our recommendations were informing others through videos, Looms, professional development, staff meetings, and for each of our programs, increase the knowledge of the screening process and its benefits beyond just a referral or evaluation, and refocus that increased access programming. And then finally, leadership. With the many changes occurring in the administrative support within some of these programs, specifically mine, questions and discussions occurred around preservation of programming, advocacy of staff and children birth to 3, and consistency of those services. We suggest or recommend emphasis on collaboration, advocating for birth through age 3 programs and services, continue hiring and maintaining quality administration and staff, and continue collaboration with those community partners that are so essential. There's a little video on here that whenever we go on the road, as Michelle and I call it, we always play this video in there because it kind of the essence of what birth through age 3 or even birth to 5 is. It's about our vroom, and the vroom says that the power is within the parent, that they have it in them. So take a moment when you get a chance to look at that. But anything that my team would like to add? I think that'd be great. Does anybody have any questions?
Pam, do you have any statistics of about how many families that you've impacted just this year, or the number of students? I know that's probably really tricky with all of.
If I had to just like off the top of my head, Title I preschool, we did have full classes. So that was 30 plus 44, so 30. And then we had students that had maybe left or moved away, or then we got new ones in throughout the year. That's just Title I. Like I said, we with our birth to 5 outreach, on average, our events are around 100 or more. Our summer play groups have been 100. Even when it was raining the other day, we had almost 65 adults and infants or littles that came. We had for home visiting, we probably have, I think it was 78. I'm still doing the numbers for my year-end reports. I think it was 78 families, and we did almost 700 home visits this year. And that was down a little bit because we had some people that left, and then you have to train and all that, which is quite costly from the grant. Screenings, like I said, was over 284. Phone calls, visits. I think in the past week, I've even gotten, I want to say at least a dozen phone calls from families looking for programming. This year, I had to do 3 tours and presentations to other school districts because we are the only one in the state that has this type of programming. The investment that the Appleton Area School District has put in this programming is incredible. I mean, just they're trying to find ways. We know that most of our programming is through Fund 80 in Title I, and they're looking at ways that they can use their Fund $80 to do the same. Does that answer your question, Chris?
Thank you. And thank you for all of your work. I mean, I think it's well documented that early intervention is very important to the overall success of children into adulthood. One recommendation that you had down was to hire a birth to 5 outreach resource coordinator. Is that a current position, or is that a new position?
It just got posted today. So Michelle Renoski will be taking over birth to 5 outreach, my group. And we had looked at how can we maintain, this has worked so well because half of Julie's job is doing home visits as well. And that hands-on supervision, that an administrator just doesn't have the time to always be doing those observations and support. Because you know that our families that are in these programs often need extra resources, are looking for that soft handoff. So we just put it out there today to get someone like Julie for our Birth to 5 team to help support that team. We are running this kind of programming for Birth to 5 outreach with only 3 coordinators, hourly based, no benefits, about 20 hours to 30 hours a week. And we still have 1 vacancy yet in there. So I think that it's well needed, and the fund $80 will support it because it's community collaboration.
Thank you all for your efforts. It's very much appreciated.
I have just a couple questions. The first is like, it's very impressive. You offer basically like a suite of programs and services. And it sounds like, you know, you have the preschool happening at Columbus, and you have the program happening in collaboration with FETC. And those are more like classroom environments, right? But it seems like the rest of the programs and services are really about meeting people where they're at. So I guess I'm wondering, like, could you kind of give a very brief and high level explanation of how you make those connections in the community with parents and families? And then my second question was just I saw that there was a bullet point about itinerant services, and I'm just wondering if you could kind of define that a little bit.
Oh, yeah,
for
I'm
us.
sorry, I kind of rushed over that. Itinerant services are those services that can be met in the community. So if you have a child that has an IEP that needs maybe speech and language, or just needs a little extra based on their goals, it can be done at like a Bridges Child Enrichment Center. They can go into that setting, or they can go into the Title I preschool classroom, which we have quite a few children that are in our Title I preschool. And they have, I believe it's 4 or 5 itinerant services for speech and language, and 2 that are for just itinerant services. And then the collaboration with a community, those have been well established even before myself. I didn't start with the Birth to 5 outreach until January of 2016. But I think that just our presence in the community sometimes, like if we're with Building for Kids and they are having a celebration for kids or a art week for kids, we go out there. We're really present in the Kids Expo, which was over 5,500 kids that showed up for that. But I and another Birth to 5 coordinator sat in on every meeting with that planning, and Kylie Harwell helped with social media. Our social media presence is really helpful. The screenings are helpful because they get students in or families in that, you know, it's supposed to be a well checkup. So if they're just lagging in a few skills, they try to get them into our play groups, or maybe attach a home visitor, or get them into our Title I preschool. So those have happened organically. I also feel that I'm not going to toot my horn because it's about these people, but like a Michelle Campbell and I have done a Theta Care Mommy and Me class together, or so that work's got to continue. That's why that leadership part, that being present, I'm on the Child Care Resource and Referral Board. I know the impact that we really need a presence in our early childhood, because it's not looking good sometimes. So did that answer your question?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for your dedication to getting out there and making sure that families know that there are services available for them and before 4K and above. So.
Yeah. Anything else you would like to add, Michelle?
Thank you.
Okay.
I think the only other thing is just word of mouth, and I feel our quality of work has, you know, provided families so many resources, and then they continue to share with additional families. And so sometimes it's just that we run into each other at a community event, but other times we've got families that say, I shared this information with a friend and now she wants to reach out to you or come and see you. So
Michelle has been with the group or the team since its onset, 18 years now. And it started out that they were doing play groups in some of the elementary buildings. So like I was at Columbus, I was a teacher there, and they would just come in and do a playgroup once a week. Or maybe once a month even, maybe. And there was somebody at Highlands and maybe somebody at Johnston. So now, since we've been at the Community Early Learning Center since 2014, they've been able to bring the families there, and it's a nice venue if you come and see. We can do we do 2 play groups on Tuesdays and 2 on Thursdays. And we limit it to 12, and we have people coming to even our summer programming all the way from like Wapaka, Green Bay, Fond du Lac, looking for programming for their children, and it's free. So.
Just a question. To what extent do we see referrals coming from our healthcare provider community, the family doctors, pediatricians, nurse practitioners? Oftentimes it would seem they would be one of the first entries into identifying a child that would be benefit from these services. Is that relationship strong? Can you speak to that a little bit?
When I first started, they had a strong relationship with Theta Care. And even through that Take 5, we work with the area hospitals. I think that's an area of improvement. It's just not enough people to get there, but we have these, what they're called red folders that have all the things that we offer in the school district in them. And we have a couple county nurses, doctors that ask often, can we have a couple of those just to keep in our waiting room? WIC, we have them coming remotely now to the CELC, and they are always taking our folders and just getting them out to people. Sure.
I have a couple questions. I think just wanted to follow up on what Nick shared there in terms of like, how does the outreach happen to communities that particularly may not know that these programs actually exist, and that education doesn't start when the child is 5. It can start much more sooner than that. And so I'm just curious about that in terms of like, how do those families who actually don't have any idea of this know about that these services are offered? So that's my first question. And then I wondered about like families who've come through before, if they've had other children enrolled later on as well too, when they have more children. And then my last question is, I'm just curious if we, maybe not so much for all of you, but maybe for Superintendent Harches, to the tracking, if we track any of the students that come through in terms of how they do throughout their period of like when they started in this program and then went to when they graduated. I think that's a lot of tracking, obviously, but I think that it also tells us and proves to us that education really early on is helpful as well too. And so I'm just curious about those things.
Okay, let's see if I can remember. Getting to that social media is a huge impact. We've tried really hard to get our Facebook and then word of mouth. As far as families that have been in our programming, that's one of the criteria for Title I preschool, that if you had one child in there prior, that if you have another one come up, they have first priority to being in our Title I. Even Start Family Literacy, it's all dependent on where the adult is in their programming, whether or not, how many kids we can get through that. I just started looking at the data today for Even Start Family Literacy. And that goes K through 5th grade. Those that are still in it, their reading proficiency was well over 50%. No behavior incidences so far that I've seen, that they in K through 5, they have had, if they had one behavior incident, attendance is in the 90 percentile. So it's about 93% for those K through 5 students that are in our schools right now that experienced Even Start Family Literacy with their parent. Does that help?
Thank you. Appreciate that.
It's a lot. You do a lot. And as Nick had said, I mean, just so many different programs. Honestly, this is a good, really great presentation and a good refresher, because I think it's hard to remember how much we do provide.
Mm-hmm.
So if there was one challenge that you would cite, like right now with all of you, the experience, and certainly things have grown, what would be the biggest challenge that you think you have right now?
You don't see their wings and you don't see their halos. These are the people. I understand because it's fund 80 and you know, they're, and I'm talking for you guys, so you can talk too. Their schedules are flexible. They work on the weekends, they work at night, they work in, but they can, right? But they don't get benefits. And I just sometimes, and you know, Julie's been amazing helping me to, you know, advocate for those raises and stuff like that for them as well. But I think that is a challenge because there's not enough of us. And we know that the budget restrains that. But if you could do anything, please keep that birth through age 5 even, as you've always been so supportive. The board has always been very supportive. Administration has been very supportive of this group.
I think this program evaluation really highlights two important things. One, as several who said, some of our most critical work starts well before 5K. And these ladies really exemplify that service that's provided to our community. I believe the other piece is this really highlights some really strong community and family partnerships that the district has had for many years. This Friday, we'll actually conclude another chapter, which is 25 years of service that Pam Fransky has made to our district. And so I just want to thank you so much for everything you've done for us for 25 years.
And that's why there's chairs. So everybody can see it. It's really about these guys, so yeah, or these people.
Well, you're a good team, and so thank you for all of your efforts and all of the work that's done. And we know it might be difficult to actually measure exactly, you know, how our students are doing and benefiting, but you know, the data that you do share is really helpful and it's very encouraging. So thank you.
You're very welcome. This was a pleasure. This was the best. I've been on a lot of program evaluations. This was one of the easiest ones just because I've been a part of all of it. So, and the team was just, their conversation was so amazing, and all the ahas that they came up with, and they didn't talk much, but I told them they didn't have to. Oh, please don't make me talk. So, all right.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, next we are going to hear about the 2023-24 Achievement Gap Reduction End of the Year Report. And I'll welcome Nan, and Nan has a team joining, right? Oh, perfect. There they are. Okay.
Right, well, you saw us mid-year. I'm Nan Buno, Assistant Superintendent.
Carrie Willer, Director of Elementary Ed. Anne Marie Worley Gonzalez, the Principal at Badger. Katie Schmelzer, Principal at Edison.
And we are here to do our end of the year Achievement Gap Reduction Report. And we'll start with, I'll start with just a brief overview of what the AGR program is. This is very similar to what we gave you before, but in case there's anyone that's watching and doesn't know about our program. The Achievement Gap Reduction Program is a program that's set up by state statute and managed by Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. And it allows schools within the state who are eligible for a 5-year contract, which they haven't offered in quite a few years. But that contract, you receive funding to do one of 3 different strategies within the K-3 classrooms of that building. One would be to use the funds to do one-on-one tutoring with a licensed teacher. or instructional coaching for teachers provided by a licensed teacher, or lowering class size, which would be 18 students to 1 teacher as a cap, or 30 to 2. And when you have this grant, you are required to set performance objectives and focus on reducing the achievement gap for students who qualify for free and reduced lunch. Aid payments come in from the state, and they use our third Friday count in our AGR schools, looking at how many of our K-3 students in those buildings qualify for free and reduced lunch. With AGR in the Appleton area school districts, we have 7 schools that qualified. Going back in history, this started out as the SAGE program. And basically, when the money ran out at the state, it's been capped and they haven't allowed other schools to apply. But you are able to move the contract from school to school within the district, within a district. And so we have Badger, Dunlap, Edison, Foster, Highlands, Horizons, and Jefferson. So at the time when they were approved in the late 90s, many of them were our lowest, our highest low income schools. But of course, that's not the case now. Things have changed, but they still qualify for AGR, and we do monitor that completion. As you know, with Columbus, we move the contract over to Highlands. So we do keep an eye on that. With the AGR contract, we are required to come to you twice a year, mid-year and end of the year, to give you an update on our progress. But we're standing here on the, and I know you cannot read that, but that's a list of all the people that are on our AGR work group. So we are here representing quite a few people that come together twice a year to look at the data and do some short-term and long-term planning. And also our representatives like from the district level, but also at the building level, that serve on their building CSIP teams and are working with the K-3 teachers within the building to move this work forward. So the work group, like I said, comes together twice a year, and really the focus areas for this group is to establish and progress monitor the performance objectives that we set to help us plan for these presentations. And then also be the voice at their CSIP teams in the buildings about how does instruction look differently in an AGR classroom with lower class size, and then at other self-identified areas that the work group comes up with. As far as our performance objectives, over the years, we've really, it started out where every building was different, and we came together and all have the same performance objectives as far as the template, the frame. But then it's personalized by the building based on how they scored in the spring of the year previous. And there's really 2 buckets of information that we look at. One is we look for typical growth, which is where we're looking for at least a year or more, 1 or more years of growth on the iReady. And the reason we have growth as a key performance indicator is because we're, of course, looking to close the achievement gap. The other bucket of scores that we look at is attainment, grade level attainment. And so with that, we look at students, we look at data from a program lens, where we're looking at first grade in 1 year to first grade the next year, and did that score increase. But then we also are able to group the students into cohorts within iReady, and then we can track them as well from 1 year to the next. So we also watch their scores from from the kindergarten year to those kids as they were in first grade, and we want to see improvement in scores that way as well. So when we look at these performance objectives, and shout out to Ann Kaler because she does all of our data digging for us to get us these reports. We're looking at students that are with us for a full academic year. So when we look at the cohort level analysis, when we're looking from students that were, from a kindergarten to a third grade, that third grade group get a little small because of students that have moved out over the years. But we still monitor that data because we want to not only look at the program level analysis, but also the cohort level. So what you probably noticed already is our end of the year report looks a little bit different. We've changed the formatting based on the feedback that you provided us. But then also as a work group, we talked about the fact that that very fun report where we would compare AGR, Title I AGR to Title I non-AGR to non-Title I. Really, we were looking at class size differences and with class size reduction and with the referendum, all of our buildings are 20-1 that are non-AGR. So we didn't feel that looking through that data was as valuable as it was to look through, to take the time to look through individual skill sets. And Carrie, I'm sure you can talk a little bit more about that with the data that we pulled. So what we wanted to do was to still want to look for those closing achievement gaps for our students who qualify for free and reduced lunch. And so what you're going to see is for reading and math, we've looked at comparing AGR to all other students in the district score to AGR, because we're looking to make sure that watching that gap. And then the other thing we wanted to provide is, as you had asked for more of a narrative, what Carrie will be talking about is what the work group, when they did the data analysis, and they went deep into different types of assessments, as well as getting down to the skill level, what were their findings. So that's how you're going to see things a little bit different with our report. Finally, we'll end with a building specific report, which we felt was important, because as we worked as a work group and talked about the feedback that you had about our end of semester reports, it's really about, the template of the performance objectives are the same, but each building is personalized, and they are working through their CSIP team to personalize what they're focused on. And we felt that was important to share with you as well. So that's why you see a different report. The work group took in all of the feedback, looked at the data we had, and felt that this would be a good way to share our progress with you. So again, if there's any feedback on how we've organized this, certainly let us know. We're open to that. All right, so I'm going to turn over to Dr. Willer, who's going to get into the data.
So, as Dr. Bonner had mentioned, this slide indicates our cumulative data from how our year had ended. And I think it's a particular note, knowing that AGR's focus is to close the achievement gap. When you take a look at the individual grades, you'll see that kindergarten, as well as third grade AGR schools actually outperformed our district overall score, which we are very pleased to see. And that in summation, AGR schools scoring at typical growth at 63%, the district at 64%. We really are pleased to see the numbers being so close. When we look at what does that mean in terms of a narrative, our work group spent a fair amount of time this summer talking about that. And so we recognized that as we dug deeper into iReady and we looked at particular sub-skill sets that iReady produces, we drilled down to the phonological and the vocabulary subsets. We noticed that our AGR students actually outperformed in those areas. So though we were happy to celebrate that, we always ask the question, why? Why did this happen? What may be contributing to this data? And the team hypothesized in this instance that they really believed that it had a lot to do with the new phonics resources that we were using within our AGR schools, that teachers having had access to an actual phonics resource with a very strong scope and sequence played a significant role in that. And also those resources provided significant assessment opportunities, which allowed teachers to work really hard in their PLCs. They did planning, they did small group instruction. They really tailored that skill level need to where their students were at. And so the other piece that we recognized was that iReady doesn't drill down to the phonemic level, even one level lower, and that phonemic level really focuses on identifying the sounds and the letters, the correspondence between the two, so that we needed to use our new phonics screener. We also looked at that data as well, and we felt that that was really helpful in guiding instruction. And we also recognized the fact that our professional development this year was exclusively ELA. We had a literacy coach join us from CISA 6. Every site did a book study. Most of our conversations this year focused on ELA. And so those were some of the reasons that the work group had hypothesized for the change in our data.
We're really excited with the new ELA adoption, thinking this is just the precursor with the pilots.
So then we look at math. And you will also notice that within our math data, you will notice that our kindergarten and our third grade continued to actually outperform our non-AGR schools, and that the overall AGR district comparison is comparable at 57 to 59%. And so when we looked at, okay, what might be some contributing factors, our team spoke a lot about the fact that our professional development this year was limited to ELA. And we have to recognize that our teachers are working incredibly hard, but they do not have the capacity to do significant instructional shifts in ELA and math simultaneously, given everything that we've been doing this year with ELA. And that the teams then said next year they would like to, in addition to the new ELA resource, they would like to focus a little bit more on universal math talk within the math lessons to engage our learners, as well as working on some instructional shifts around small group math instruction for next year.
Okay, Katie and I will walk you through the individual schools' action plans for student growth in the AGR world. Beginning with Badger. This graphic just kind of shows our leadership team's collective belief about professional learning, having a positive impact on instruction, and that having a positive impact on student success. So that's a graphic that you're going to see on all of our slides. Our agreed upon action steps at Badger were to develop teacher capacity with the interactive read aloud part of our curriculum and increasing student talk and discourse in the classroom. That made accountable talk, an increase in accountable talk in classrooms, deepen students' comprehension of text and increase students' access to grade level text as well. The results that we saw from that were that students in all but one AGR grade level met their annual typical growth goal in reading. All but one AGR grade level and all but one AGR grade level students met their annual attainment growth in reading. I said that already. Sorry. And then 40% of AGR Badger students are reading at or above grade level in the spring, which is an increase of 22% from the fall. To speak to Dunlap's plan, their action steps were really to develop teacher capacity with delivering phonics instruction using Blevins's From Phonics to Reading program in grades K through 3. Teachers followed that scope and sequence that was given to them with fidelity in all of those grade levels, and their results were that students in all but one AGR grade level met annual typical growth goals in reading and math. Dunlap third grade students met every goal in reading and math except the typical growth goal in reading. And then at 46% of kindergartners, 34% of first graders, 32% of second graders, and 23% of third grade students at Dunlap read at or above grade level at the end of the year.
All right, talking a little bit about Edison. Our focus was to develop high-level routines in the areas of language and vocabulary development. So similar to Badger, where we were looking for that student-to-student discourse and more conversation and dialogical questioning and things within the classroom. So getting more of a student voice, not just the teacher voice. So PLCs collaborated quarterly, and we identified key academic vocabulary to teach throughout all subjects. So math, reading, science, social studies. And then we also did the Blevins phonics to reading to build those phonics skills. So if you look at the bottom, my results, 97% of our kindergarten students were on or above grade level in reading. And 3 out of 4 grade levels met their achievement goal in reading and math. And then I kind of just broke it down because we really focused on vocabulary as a whole school in all areas of the building. And we saw a ton of growth in that area because of that. So we went from the whole school, 17% on or above grade level in that vocabulary domain up to 40%. And then if you look at the table, you can just see huge amount of increase from fall to spring in their vocabulary skills. So we were really proud of that. Looking at Foster, they were really looking to shift their practices to align with the science of reading research that is out there, and again working on that oral language. And you'll notice that kind of as we go through a lot working on that, those language and vocabulary development skills for our students. They actually piloted an illustrative math program, so they were focused on that language and those skills during math during math time. So their results, second grade students met targeted percentage of at or above in both math and reading. So that was 73% of their students. And 5K students or kindergarten did not meet their targeted percent. 59% of them were at or above grade level, which is still a great percentage. Kindergarten, they did meet their growth goal. So while they didn't meet that attainment goal, growth is what we're looking for. They did meet their growth goal in both reading and math. And then 68% of second grade students met their targeted growth in math.
I'll share Highlands action plan. Their action steps were to really learn and implement high leverage literacy routines in all grade levels, K through 5, and with a specific focus on implementing UFly in grades K through 3, as well as committing to flexible grouping with students across the grade level based on the phonics skills that they were showing. They increased the overall percentage of students reading at or above grade level school-wide by 4%. They increased the percentage of AGR students who are on or above grade level in reading from 5 to 27%, increased the percentage of AGR students who are on or above grade level in math from 2 to 20%, and then decreased by 50% the number of students that were 2 or more grade levels below in both reading and math, which is exciting. To share Highlands plan, Horizons. I just shared Highlands.
You just shared
Yeah, thank you.
So
Moving on to Horizons. Learning and implementing high leverage routines in language and vocabulary development was a focus. You might be hearing a theme here. And then the results of that work for them were that on the iReady, they improved reading scores overall from 35% in 2023 to 38% in 2024. And then drilling down to the vocabulary results on that specific part of the iReady exam, increased the proficiency rate for students in special education from 10 to 32%, and regular education from 32 to 61%, which is also impressive.
And lastly, Jefferson, they were developing their teacher capacity through coaching cycles and professional development with Haggerty, which is another phonics program, and they use that just in their K1 classrooms. So they implemented that daily phonics curriculum with Fidelity in those K1 grade levels, and you'll see below very high levels of attainment for their kindergarten and first grade. So kindergarten, 83% of students met their growth, and 78% of them were at or above grade level. 64% of first graders met their growth, and 43 of them were at or above grade level. So just in summary, we are very proud of our work this year, and I always like to highlight growth is super, super important. Attainment is the goal. Growth is what gets us there. So I think you kind of could see through the theme that we grew a ton, and we're going to continue to grow as we move on. So any questions for us?
Yes, I do have a question. The numbers are awesome. So for Highlands, I'm just curious, but like, for example, the 5% to 27%, is that like other schools have reported like fall semester to end of year?
Yes.
Okay. And then I'm just curious, do you have like a, I don't know, baseline is the right word, but like a non-AGR school, what do those numbers look like, you know, from fall to end of year? Like, is the AGR programming, yeah, do you understand what I'm asking? I'm sorry.
Kind of
So
what
like,
those first graphs were, right?
I'm just thinking how to best answer that question, because I understand what you're asking, Nick. So I'm thinking that in comparison between like a non-AGR school, from its fall to spring scores, we did see growth, but I would also pull that down to looking at the growth between whether they were a participant in one of our pilots, one of our field tests that we did for our phonics resources or not, because those that we saw participating in a structured literacy field test had higher growth than those that did not. But in terms of the percentage of growth between fall and spring, between AGR to AGR and non-AGR to non-AGR, would be very similar.
Thanks. And I mean, I do think from what I'm seeing and what you are telling us, continuing on with the ELA program development in the future, this is a great sign that I'm very excited to see the future as this progresses. So thank you.
Question about slide 7. So I see we're doing well, particularly with the gap and having people meeting their growth goals, students. Are you concerned with that second line? Are those numbers lower than you would like to see as far as attaining grade level? Or is that something that's typical? And if it is the structured literacy program, we're hoping pulls that up, or there's some other thing? It's just when I see grade, like 3rd grade, and we're at under 40% for reading attainment, that is a concern to me. I'm curious as to your insights on that.
So, I think to your first question, Ed, anything less than 100% is not where we want to go. I think that's without saying. What is exciting about it is that we're moving closer to 100% than we have been. And we've made some pretty significant growth this year in our reading focus. And though the resource plays a part of that, the teachers using that resource play the biggest part of that, and focused on PD and having everyone kind of moving forward together needs to be something that we continue in future years. When we look at grade level attainment goal, what's a little bit difficult is that you don't necessarily have a reference point. What did that look like in previous years to what it looks like now? And I think that if we had some additional data for you to see that, you would see that we did make an increase in grade level attainment. I think we also have to look at where our kids started the year and where they finished the year. And that will also play into the numbers that we're looking at for that grade level attainment goal. And as you heard from, some of the individual sites, where we started the year was pretty low, and where we ended it showed growth. We still have more work to do. We're not there yet, but we are moving forward.
It will be beneficial, this is at all possible, start implementing structured literacy. If we can see what it looked like 3 years before that, hopefully we'll see a big spike up 2nd year, 3rd year, 4th year into structured literacy, and see if it's having the impact we hope it's having.
Agreed.
Couple of questions. First, just to clarify, on the charts you showed comparing AGR to district averages, just to understand, are the AGR scores in the district number we see there too, or are they taken out of it?
They're included.
Okay. That is helpful to know, because about a third of our schools are AGR roughly, and does that translate roughly to about a third of kids at those grade levels too?
I would say now, because Highlands is in there, before it was Columbus, it was less, but now we have some larger schools.
Yep.
I wouldn't say it's probably exactly a third, but yes.
Yeah, ballpark.
Yeah,
Just
I would say, because some of these schools are some of our smaller ones. So when we look at enrollment, but yeah, ballpark.
got it. Yeah, that's helpful to know. Just because the average then is coming a little closer to the AGR as the comparison point. So just helpful to know the gap might be slightly larger than seen here when looking at the other schools, but still closing in a lot in reading, which is really exciting. I was also curious, it's like thinking about those charts, like if I'm a kindergartner this year, I took my end of year test and I scored, relative to being at the end of kindergarten. And then that benchmark, I'm assuming, is still relatively the same as where I'd be expected to be performing as a very beginning first grader. Do we see a drop over summer frequently from where kids are scoring at the end of the year prior to the following year? And do you have any sense of how that look? I mean, I think I obviously kind of know my answer to a little bit, but how does that compare, and what you do know from the data at AGR schools to non-AGR schools on average?
I haven't done a comparison on the impact of the summer slide from AGR to non-AGR schools, but I mean, the research is pretty conclusive that the summer slide is is bigger in low-income schools, and I think we see that every year.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of our summer school team for taking on the work of creating some more consistent curriculum resources for summer school. And I think the next step, at least for schools like Badger, is getting our summer school enrollment up.
Yeah, that's helpful to know, because that's kind of what I was assuming. As you see sometimes, I guess when I look at this chart, to some degree, it feels a little bit sometimes like, man, what are we losing from kindergarten to third grade? You know, in many cases, but my theory personally would be that it might in many ways be related to some of the summer slide and opportunities and how we think about those months where we're not giving our kids support on a daily basis in that way. And what does that look like? So anyway, just something I was thinking about, and that's helpful to hear kind of your initial thoughts on that. Thank you.
Yeah. I just want to clarify to follow on James' point, the district number includes the AGR?
Correct. All of the kindergartners in the district.
So previously, in the old format, AGR would be compared to non-AGR, Title I, different, and then they were just separate programs. Or so I'm curious why the work group wouldn't have decided to do AGR versus non-AGR.
Part of it was because the reason we did those charts that way was to look at the impact that class size reduction had. Because that was the one difference, the large difference between AGR and non-AGR. And because of the referendum in K2 being to 20, we're looking for 2 students. We didn't feel that we felt it was more valuable to use our time to look at the sub-skills than to do the comparison. But we can easily add a third part to the chart to just do AGR, non-AGR, and then district overall. That wouldn't be a problem, if that would be helpful to the board.
I thought one of the questions you wanted to ask is how does instruction look different in AGR classrooms? And so then, and maybe it's not going to be exclusive because.
And that has been the issue we've been running into because of the fact that all of the strategies we use with lower class size, which would be more individualized and individualized instruction and small group, more contacts with families. That was something that we brought forward with the referendum because of the progress that we were making at the AGR schools. So we certainly can slice the data that way. But again, as a work group, we felt that using our time differently and looking at the sub-skills was more beneficial.
I'm not asking for additional work for people to do additional work. I was just, as far as what we're trying to evaluate, is because AGR certainly, it's terrific to get the grant dollars.
Yes.
We do support as well. And so if you're deciding if it's, do you want to speak to it?
I can.
As far as the data.
We've run the numbers and it still is of value to us to have the state AGR dollars. And just some feedback that we had gotten before was that we were sharing too many numbers with you. It was hard to draw conclusions. So we thought we'd make it a little bit easier and just take 2 numbers for you and say, here's the AGR numbers, compare it to the district. And so really just trying to compare those and make it a little bit simpler to draw conclusions. Previously, we did have, like you said, we had 4 sets of numbers for every grade, which when we bring it to you in this meeting was a lot of numbers to digest. So we're trying to make it easier and just say, let's compare AGR. And so, in your mind, you can extrapolate out if the AGR numbers are lower than the district average, assume that the non-AGR schools would have been a little bit higher than the district average and vice versa. But we certainly can bring it to you another way if you'd like.
I think it's just what question you're trying to answer. I mean, and so that's the only reason I bring it up, but. Okay, I do like this format better than what we had. It is, there are too many colors on those bar graphs and so I think it is easier to digest, but.
I did have one piece of feedback on the reporting here. One thing that I felt was missing was in one of the earlier slides, you had 3 numbers that you were using for performance objectives. The typical growth by 1%, increasing by 1%, on or above grade level, increasing by 1%. And I don't see that anywhere in this report. So that's, when I was looking through this earlier, I was like, was wondering if I was missing something in terms of why we said those are our objectives, but then we don't report out on those numbers actually increasing over time. So that would be my one piece of feedback.
Thank you for that feedback.
I appreciate the clarification to Kay's question, because I think I was thinking the same way you were, Kay, in that. So thank you for that clarification. As I was reading through these, I was noticing the differences in the strategies and the focus areas, and wondering if the group came to any general conclusions that are planned to be used with every school in the future.
I mean, I think in terms of, I'm sure you heard the themes of increasing students' access to complex texts and understanding of grade level vocabulary, and increasing students' opportunities, increasing oral language, as well as increasing students' foundational skills in phonics and phonemic awareness. And we're pretty confident that with the resource adoption and just continued consistent professional development and implementing those resources with fidelity, those themes are going to be applied district-wide. That's it's kind of like baked into the resources that we're going to be using.
I think a large part of our growth, and I was going to speak to this earlier, is I think when we look at these overall scores, I feel, so we piloted the phonemic awareness and phonics. That's only the beginning part of reading. Now we're gonna do this ELA adoption with that comprehension of literature and nonfiction texts. So while my kindergarten are 97% proficient in their phonics and phonemic awareness, now how can we get our first and second graders 97% proficient in their comprehension? So I think to your question, we are going to continue with the phonics and the explicit instruction. I think we can, as AGR schools, our students need to be explicitly taught. So that's what we talk about with high leverage routines. Like every morning, we're going to be doing our high frequency word practice. We're going to be doing our heart word routine. We're going to be doing all of the things that are in the resource that we all are going to be using. It's agreed upon as like, this is a non-negotiable. So that's something that will for sure be consistent. Something that also, I think I'm kind of repeating what Anne Marie said, is we are district-wide adopting this ELA curriculum. And I think because of this success, we're excited and teachers are excited to continue to have the strong resource to continue to see the growth.
So going forward into next year, then, do you see action steps being at least stated more consistently across the schools? Or do you see that action steps will still be different?
I can speak to that a little bit. They could still be different. The reason Edison focused on vocabulary, it was our lowest domain on our iReady individual school report. So that's what our continuous school improvement team decided. This is where we're performing lowest. This is what we need to focus our attention on. So I think it's based on individual schools' data on where we need to invest the time in professional development. I don't know if you have different feelings on that, any of you.
I think to your point, the only thing that I would add is that in our work group, each of the sites had teams, each of the EGR teams were there and started to do some preliminary action planning on what they wanted to take forward as high leverage routines, a shift in pedagogical practices, that their CSIP teams then in August, when the CSIP teams came together, would then start to talk and collaborate, and then how that CSIP team then can transcend back to the PLC and within the staff meeting. So I think there's that loop. I also do believe, though, that there will be 3 to 4 high leverage instructional routines across the district that we hope to see in all of our classrooms. Most of those will stay the same K-5, but there'll be a few variants between primary and intermediate that will also be part of the work that we do, because we do know that we have some instructional shifts that all of our schools, AGR or not AGR, need to make as well. So it's a little bit of both, Chris.
And I guess I'm happy to hear that because otherwise I find it challenging to figure out then what is the reason for the change? Is it that strategy that each individual school used? Or is it the lack of those 4 strategies being used in a class? It's hard to know. So knowing that the focus will be on some sort of a consistent pattern at every school. And then, yes, maybe some tweaks depending on what your data shows. That's encouraging to know. So thank you.
Excitement right now in our district about the resource, and I think cohesiveness would be a word that I would also say, and that I feel like our teachers are really excited for the changes that we're making and moving forward together. We've got a lot of work to do, but just that willingness to participate has been really refreshing.
And I think of the students that move from school to school too, that hopefully that consistency will be beneficial then for them. Thank you.
Looks like there are not any other additional questions, so thank you very much. And we'll see you again. Another semester. Thank you. All right, we are going to move to now the district scorecard presentation. Mr. Harches.
Yes, so I will grab the clicker here from Kayla. So our scorecard is something that we've done to drive annual improvement in our district for the last 6 years. And we continue to develop a scorecard each year that has goals and then actions that will drive those goals, and then benchmarks that we will use to monitor whether we've met those goals. And, you know, even though some of our goals now overlap with coherent governance, we still think there's value in developing a scorecard every year, because what happens with the goals that are developed is they cascade down to departments and schools. And so our departments and schools are helping us try to meet these goals by developing their actions as well within this. The other thing we like about the scorecard is it helps keep us focused in 4 main areas. So there's a lot going on in our large district, and we try to stay focused by saying, is it part of pillar 1, which is inclusive and engaging culture to support teaching and learning? So we're looking to ensure safe, healthy, and welcoming school environment for all, for staff and for students. So we look at 3 goals in that pillar. Then we go to student success. That's more the academic. So not the social emotional for students, but this is academic goals. And then again, what actions do we bring forward with those? Our 3rd pillar is family and community partnerships, as it sounds. And then our 4th pillar is resources and operational excellence. So again, there we're looking to align resources and operations directly with our district priorities to ensure the success of all students with maximum efficiency and excellence. So those are our 4 pillar areas. And then under each of those, we develop goals. So on the next one, you can just scroll down if you want. Does that work? Okay. So I'll just quickly take you through the goals. And so under pillar 1, we have 3 goals. Again, this is about school environment. And the first goal area is to increase the staff engagement survey mean score from 3.82 to 3.87 from last year to this year. And later in the meeting, I'm going to talk more about the survey that this refers to, but that's our overarching goal for the staff engagement survey. And this year, our average score was 3.98. So it's highlighted in green because we met this goal. And so we needed to get to 3.87. We went well beyond that with 3.98. The next goal area is pertaining to student attendance. And so our goal was to decrease the percentage of chronically absent students. That means they miss 10% or more of school days. So we wanted to reduce that by 3%. So the elementary level, we were successful. We wanted to go from 14 down to 11. We were at 10.9. So it's highlighted in green because we met that goal. At the middle level, we did not meet the goal. We wanted to go from 17.6 down to 14.6. We were at 16.3. And then very disappointing, our high school number, we were looking to go from 25.5 down to 22.5. We actually went up this year to 25.8, which is very frustrating for us because we've put a lot of resources into attendance at the high school level, actually at all 3 levels. a lot of time, a lot of financial resources, and to see these results, it's disappointing. Even the elementary one, which is in green at 10.9, it's still about twice where we were prior to the pandemic. We'd really like to be down at 5 to 6%, the elementary level. Middle, we'd like to be at 8 to 9%, high school more like 12%. So disappointed in this. As you know, we had the large committee that met this year. They came away with several priorities for us. We have hired an attendance coordinator at the elementary level. So prior to next year, so this year, last year, we had one person, Stephanie Marta, working K-12. And so we're going to split that up. We'll have an elementary and we'll have a secondary. We're also working with the city to look at putting their citation back in. And we hope to discuss that with the city this fall. We're also looking at just some other pieces around transportation. So that is underneath attendance. And then our third goal is to reduce the district risk ratio for out-of-school suspensions for Black African-American students by 2. We wanted to go from a risk ratio of 3.5 down to 1.5. We did not make that. We were at 3.4. So that took a little calculation. That's why it wasn't in originally when you saw this posted on board docs. We are calculating that yet today. So again, that's disappointing for us. Now, one of the struggles we have with our scorecard is how large to make that goal, how small. And so the advice from Studer is always to pick one target within a goal area. So obviously we want to reduce the out of school suspension rate for all students, but we are focusing this year on our Black and African American students. Unfortunately, we did not do that. The next thing that's really important for us to look at is, have we been consistent across our schools based on if this is a behavior that sees a suspension in one school, will that behavior also have a suspension in another school? That consistency is more challenging at the elementary level where we have 18 different buildings. And so at the middle of school and the high school, it's a little bit easier for us to be consistent. So we're working on making sure we're consistent that if this behavior occurs in one school and it's treated one way, it's handled the same way in the other school. And then we're constantly looking at, is it the appropriate consequence for a student's behavior? Meaning, will it change behaviors for our environment and for that individual student? So that is in pillar 1. Are there any questions on this pillar?
Can you clarify for number 3 there in the reduction there, is that like overall in the district for Black African American students?
So,
or is
yeah,
it just
so
per grade level?
the risk ratio is across the entire district, and it's calculated based on what is our Caucasian rate. And so you can interpret this as African American students 3.5 times our Caucasian rate. And so that's what we're looking at with a at-risk ratio. Remember, Bacon, did you have a question as well?
That was basically
That was
going to be
it.
my question.
Okay. It's a newer data point. Until last year, we had not ever used the risk ratio. You know, we looked at suspension data and we would compare all of our ethnicities, but this is a specific ratio.
Well, and actually, I guess I will ask the question since you mentioned that the Caucasian is the baseline in
Right.
this. Is that, I would assume it does make sense in this case as the baseline, but is there a better or different baseline, I guess, was going to be my question. Or are there groups that are lower than that, but
There are
might not
groups.
be?
So our Asian population, that risk ratio is 0.5. So about half as likely as our Caucasian to be suspended. So yes, that's why we use the benchmark of a 1.0.
Okay.
Okay, I will move on to the second pillar. Now, the second pillar is on academics. We don't have that data yet. And we thought about, do we wait to report out on our entire scorecard until we have that data in August? But given that this is the last week of the 23-24 school and fiscal year, we wanted to report something at this time. So we will have that data for you in August. So we'll go to pillar 3, and I'm going to turn it over to Ann Bono.
Great. So pillar 3 is family and community partnerships. And the first 2 of our targets involve the family engagement survey. And I'll a couple items from now, we'll be going a little bit deeper into the staff and family engagement survey, but the two areas that we looked at for goals is we first wanted to increase our overall mean score on this survey. And so in 2023, our mean was 4.09, and we wanted to increase that to 4.14 in this spring, and we did accomplish that. Our overall mean was 4.16 on the family engagement survey. The second area, which has been our lowest area rated by our families, has been related to the frequency of feedback to families from school staff on how well their child is learning. Last year, our mean score was 3.72, and we wanted to increase that to 3.77 this year. Unfortunately, we didn't make that goal. We came in at 3.74, so it did increase, but not to the same level that we had hoped for. One thing we noticed, and I'll talk a little bit later about this when I present the full family engagement survey, is that we're able to break these questions down by demographics. And one of the things that we noticed as we did that analysis is that there is a difference between levels, as you probably would expect. When we're looking at our youngest learners in Title I and early childhood in 4K, their average was 4.08, elementary 4.03. But as we start getting into when that student has more teachers, it's just quantified. And so the middle school was 3.44 and the high school was 3.29. So overall as a district, 3.74, but it's something that we also talked about at our last lead learner about by level, looking at those scores and what that means for each of us individually as a level. The last area is related to increasing the number of business and community partnerships by 10%. Kristen Comerford and Julie Barkholz lead this area. And recently they put in this new points-based model, which the more points you get means it's a deeper, more in-depth partnership with an ambassador being the 4 points, which would be the most strongest involved partnership, down to community, which would be 1 point. Overall, we did meet this goal. We have, we started the year with 271 business and community partners, and that's grown to 308 this year. So great work for that group. One of the things that they found to be challenging is that with our community partners, they've noticed leadership and staffing changes. So having difficulty knowing exactly who to contact with those business partners. So that's something that they've been working on, so that even if there's a change in leadership or the staffing of our contact, that we have a backup for that. The other thing, as you see in red, is the community. We started out with 190 and ended the year with 189, so actually down one. But the good news is that those community folks are moving into the next stages. They're moving into a contributor and advocates. That's the reason that happened. It's a good thing in a sense that we didn't meet that goal, because those original partners that started at the community level at the beginning of the year have now moved up into contributor and advocate. And then we've also increased the number overall. So I'd say very pleased about those results. And I'll, like I said, be sharing shortly with you a little bit more in depth about the family engagement survey.
And then the final pillar, I will start, and I believe Holly's going to take over, is resource and operational excellence. So the first goal there was to increase the district services survey mean score from 4.38 to 4.43. It is red as that goal was not met. The actual was 4.28 as far as mean score. The survey did have less participation. We had about 27% less participation in the survey this year. So one of the goals that we would have for next year is to increase participation. With the DSS survey, that is an important metric, particularly for departments that incorporate into their scorecard. So there has to be a goal in improvement in those areas, and that's a standing item for those departments that are listed there above.
Okay, goal 2 then was to spend between 101 and 103% of our revenue for the year
for 23-24. As you all recall, that was set that way because we did go into 23-24 with a deficit budget. So meaning we're going to spend more than we're taking in. Again, that was a strategic move. We had some expenses we knew we were taking on. And, you know, just given the financial state of the district, we were totally comfortable doing that. The projections right now, again, like Greg just said, we're in our last week of the fiscal year, so I do not have final numbers. But I did put this green because I am fully confident that we are going to spend between 101 and 103% of our budget, which will land us squarely in where we thought we were going to be, with a deficit of about $3 to $4 million. And then number 3 was, given the last year of ESSER, we've had this one for the lifespan of ESSER funding. 85% of ESSER funding would be allocated by evidence-based interventions. And again, we budgeted that way and we basically just stuck to our budget. So we are fully confident that that goal was met. The lion's share of the ESSER funding was for staffing, interventionists and items like that. And so, again, that's the way we budgeted and we followed the ESSER budget. Questions?
Holly, can you just clarify the importance of spending all of the revenue? I mean, just so it's not like we're just spending to spend it. I mean, it does impact our revenue for the amount that we get from the state for the next year. I just thought maybe it'd be a good clarification.
So, yeah, thanks for that clarification, Kay. So when we're looking at aid and how we're aided for equalization aid, one of the items that they look at is, are you spending all your money? And so in years where the district is not, so if a district, for instance, has a low fund balance and wants to build it up, this would be flip-flop. Then you wouldn't spend all your money because you needed to change your fund balance position. But most of the time you want to spend the money that you get. So current year revenues on current year students. And that does impact then how you're aided the following year, because they do look at how much money did you spend in the previous year compared to your revenues.
Thank you.
Holly, last year, we ended our Fund 10 balance at 62,500,000 roughly. What's your projected fund balance for Fund 10 for 2024?
So as you said, Ed, we did end the year last year at about 62 million. That, however, is made up of several different things, and I'll break it down into just 2 basic categories. So that is the total number that you're referring to. We as a district split that number into what we call restricted or assigned and unrestricted or unassigned. Basically, as it says, if it's restricted or assigned, it has a purpose. So it's restricted for the health insurance, the retirement plan. We keep a certain amount set aside in order to have good cash flow so we can make payroll through December when we get our state aid funding. Items like that. So that was about 44 of that 65, but restricted is about 44 million, yeah. Unrestricted is about 18.5. And the 18.5 is the monies that we would basically have available for purchases.
Sorry, is that 2024 number or 2023?
So the number you referred to, the 62.5 million, was ending last year, 6/30/23. So now with the roughly 3.2 million deficit that we're anticipating, that would put us right around 15 million in that unrestricted balance.
And what's the year-over-year deficit that we're carrying?
The year-over-year deficit would be from this year.
And because the prior year, we had a deficit as well.
Yep. So our structural deficit right now is about 2 million.
Thank you.
Question about the district services survey. Could you just refresh my memory? I think that it's taken by the administrative group. Is that accurate?
That is correct. That is correct.
And then, I'm sorry, I missed this question, the number of business and community partners, that new scorecard. At some point, would we be able to, perhaps tonight is not the night, but at some point, would we be able to just kind of get an idea of what those categories are? Ambassador, advocate, contributor, community?
Yes, I know that Kristen and Julie would be more than happy to give you an overview.
Okay, thanks. And then Julie, I'm sorry, I wanted to ask this question too. Did we ever consider the district services survey going out to all employees at all?
I think the piece that I can speak to is the DSS survey was part of Studer in their structure overall. So we had followed that structure, which has carried on with the employee engagement, the family survey, and the DSS as is. So that's where we've been.
And I can speak a little more to that. So the district services it's about improving internal workings of departments. And so it's just 5 questions on timeliness, efficiency, accuracy in the result. And it's really about, so it's asking the administrators in the district, is HR doing those 5 things? Is tech service doing those 5 things? And so that's what the purpose of the district services. It is the employee or staff engagement survey that is more across the district. And that's why it has a few more questions with 12 of them.
Yes, sometimes I wonder if we get a different perspective, maybe some suggestions or maybe things as other individuals, not just the administrators, are communicating with the departments. So that's just kind of a question that I have.
Any other questions on the scorecard? Yeah.
One question, and I don't know who's the right person since I don't think they're here, but on the increase the number of community partners, I guess I'll clarify with you, Nan, first, since you presented it.
Know enough to be dangerous.
Yeah, fair. I think you said the community one is marked red because too many people moved out of it into the higher levels.
The way it was set up was they wanted to go from 190 to 209. And they only reached 189, but yeah, some of them moved. The way it's set up is they move up a level if the partnership meets different criteria, stronger criteria.
Sure, so I assume there's like a rubric or something. Yeah, it just seems, to me, it seems like maybe we could redesign that so that, like, it seems like they had more success, but then they're saying they didn't meet a goal, which just seems, I don't know, like it sends the wrong message, I guess. Like, I think we could measure it in a way where they're included just because they've moved farther up. So I don't know.
Appreciate that. And
You wanna
as we
share
look
that
to
with them,
develop
but-
the scorecard for this next year.
We
look at
can.
that.
So the reason for that is they were hoping to have more new, so not only are they looking to move from level 1 to 2, 2 to 3, but also trying to get new community partners to come in at level 1. So that's the why they wanted a separate goal for level 1 or community for 1 point.
I see. I mean, and I don't know the rubric, it's maybe not worth getting into here, but I mean, I would assume though, a new partner might move relatively quickly still into one of the higher ones or something along those lines too. I just still wonder if maybe they still, like, cause do you have to be a community partner for a certain amount of time before you can move up and be new? Like, I don't know. It just seems like they've done it. It seems like they did a great job from how I'm reading this. So
Right.
it just seems like, I don't know, maybe there's a way to.
Yeah, in my opinion, they
Go to
should
next
weight
step.
it. They should take 4 times the number of ambassadors plus 3 times the number of
Right.
advocates and get a weighted number and compare that to a previous
Yeah.
year's weighted number.
And whatever is most helpful for them is great. It
Yeah.
just, to me, at this level, seemed like they apparently blew it out of the water in that
Yeah.
regard, but still are saying they didn't meet it.
Agree. Yeah, very, very positive year and a lot of work around youth apprenticeships. Really, a lot more companies coming in to employ our students through youth apprenticeship. And, you know, that probably is what's in a lot of the green here. But certainly we can look at a different way to quantify it.
Sure. Yeah, thank you.
For what it's worth, I mean, I think, you know, they're two different goals. This year, it seems that relationships were strengthened, why all of the green indicators are there. And that was awesome. Yeah, the second part is bringing the new people in. So I still think that's important. Yeah.
Yeah, just to make it clear, like, I agree, but we don't know whether they were new or, like, this doesn't tell me they were new or not either by the fact that they didn't meet the community goal, at least as I understand the rubric. But.
And yeah, it'd be great to hear from Kristen and Julie about what this all means.
Just to give you a number, we went from 271 unweighted to 308. So the total number went from 271 last year to 308 this year, a positive, and we moved many into stronger partnerships.
Yeah, that's helpful to know. Thanks.
One more question. Greg, you mentioned that you feel that the district scorecard is an important indicator. And I'm just wondering, you know, moving forward, do you feel like this is redundancy or additional workload for staff to present the information in this way, since much of it is included other places? Just curious about your perspective on that.
For the executive team, I don't think it's a lot of work for us. I do worry about whether there's value for principals and buildings and their building staff to try to meet these goals, because as you heard from the AGR, a lot of times they want to focus on the goals that are important to their school. If vocabulary is a struggle, they want to focus in that area. This process forces them to kind of pick goals that will align with the district goals. Now, we do try to have goals around staff. We do try to address attendance and behavior, which we know are challenges. We try to look at academics, right? We're looking at forward score, I-ready score. So for the most part, we assume buildings are going to align with these. I think their bigger struggles are probably pillars 3 and 4, where they aren't sure. So, you know, like tech services is asked to complete a scorecard. They might struggle a little bit with pillar 3. They'll struggle with pillar 2, maybe. So the process doesn't fit perfectly for every department or school, but we do try to be fairly general in what they can set their goals at.
Thanks. I guess I sometimes wonder, like you said, you identified a couple of areas where I wonder how they would move into some of those areas. So thank you.
Just kind of on that point, I mean, I see the value of pillar 1 being very high to work on at a district level, you know, especially with, you know, number 3, none of us here want to see that. I'm curious why, you know, I'm sure you're already doing this, but you set a pretty high goal based on the actual results. And so, you know, you want consistency between all the schools. So, I mean, and we as a board we get different reports and stuff, but this is you know, a way of presenting the information at a district level beyond just our like monitoring reports about learning environment that I guess I see as important at this point.
Thank you. All right, still under reports, American pop culture curriculum update. Dr. Harrison.
Hey, we are sharing with you this evening an item of information relating to updated curriculum in grades 10 through 12 in the area of social studies. And as you know, in the Appleton Area School District, one of the things we pride ourselves in terms of our work in the areas of curriculum is that it's done in a collaborative manner with our staff who will be implementing the updates within the classroom. So this evening, I'm pleased to be joined by Rebecca Whittle, who is a humanities teacher at West High School, who's been part of the work group that does the work behind the scenes with respect to what's being proposed this evening. Kelly Leopold apologizes for not being able to join us for tonight's board meeting. So this is an item of information. The course is American Pop Culture. It's a course that was written a number of years ago. It's actually been in our course guidebook since the 2018-19 school year, but until recently just didn't have the student enrollment numbers for the course for it to run. We do for the upcoming 24-25 school year, and recognizing that, we knew that then we needed to update the course to align with our other standards-based courses in our district. And so this evening, Rebecca is going to just walk us through the what, why, and how behind the work that was done with that work group before you then vote on this during the July board meeting. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Rebecca.
Sure. Hello, everyone. So obviously, one of the first reasons we rewrote the course was specifically to put it into the standards-based framework that included everything so it looks identical to the rest of the courses. But on a secondary, we updated it to make it more fun. Like, we know history is fun, but sometimes when we write it, our titles, our units aren't as engaging to some of our students, and we're really excited to have them have this elective back. So we were really focused on, if a kid was just to look at a glimpse of this, would they find it fun and engaging? And so we worked really hard on that. And with us focusing in on that, one of the biggest updates we did was we took it from 5 units to 7. And what we did was really make each unit a focus. So instead of having these big ideas kind of throughout each unit, one unit is like riffology, and we're just focusing on music and the cultural impact of that. One is like the impact of superheroes. And with us focusing in on that, we are really able to hit a lot of our marginalized groups that maybe didn't get the limelight before. And so we can really focus on the musicians and their impact. And, you know, we have the time and the energy to do it. And we have that focus point for anyone who teaches it. Again, we really focused on making them standards driven. And then probably the biggest difference in the what was updated, obviously, discipline literacy is going to be involved in every course that we use. But in the prior course, they were being assessed like the ELA standards. And this is a specific social studies class where kids get social studies credit. So even though those ELA standards are going to be interwoven and still taught, they're just not assessed standards in the course design overview. And then really the how, we took a look at the newest Wisconsin State Social Studies standards, primarily focused on history, just because it was kind of the pop culture, how American pop culture has shifted and changed over the years. But there were a few units where some political science standards fit in there and behavioral science standards fit in there. So we put those as well. So that's kind of a brief why, what, and how. But if there's any questions, 3 times.
I'm curious, the course hasn't run. Why the interest now?
If I may speak bluntly, a lot of it has to do with our principal. She does a really great job of allowing our students to pick. And sometimes it's probably a little bit more work on her because maybe this class won't run, but then she has to go back to those kids and find another place. So I think her willing to do the work to allow our kids to see what they want to do and knowing that it might be an extra piece of work for her. She's very good at us each making kind of like a little video and showing the kids all of their options. For example, Appleton West acting hasn't run in, I can't tell you how many years. This year kids wanted to take it. And so I think, you know, having someone who's willing to put in that work where maybe it's not going to run, but let's see. And so we have those kids who love history. And so they really wanted to take it this year.
This is also a really good example of us meeting one of our indicators in O11, because you might recall a couple weeks ago when we looked at O11, one of our indicators is that, are we offering our students courses where they're allowed to pursue their interests? And the evidence that was submitted 2 weeks ago was our course guidebook. So this is a really nice way of bringing it all together, of making sure we're doing what we said we would do as a district, and most importantly, students being able to pursue those areas that they're really interested in.
It's great.
No cost associated with this item requested for the implementation. We just wanted to make sure the course was updated, like Rebecca said, to be aligned with our standards-based courses in the Appleton Area School District. And then this would be coming back to you during the first board meeting in July as an item for consideration.
Yeah, sounds great.
Gonna be.
Can we sign up?
Yeah,
All right,
you.
wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we are going to move to board business. First, the Hmong American Immersion School update. Hi.
So this is under board business, not because you have to take any action. You already took action back in February when you agreed to be the authorizer for the Hmong American Immersion School. But we received great news last week that they received a grant from the DPI for $1.5 million. It's a tremendous amount of money to start a charter school. Many of our charter schools started with less than $200,000. And so we're really going to be able to transition into the fall of 2025 very well. And just want to tell you just a little bit about how we got here, just to remind you, and then see if you have any questions. So in the fall of 2022, we had 2 groups approach the board about serving as an authorizer for charter schools. One was the Omalate Academy. The other one is HI, which is the acronym for Hmong American Immersion School. And at that time, as we were considering it, the state didn't have any grants available. So they decided not to issue any grants in the 2023 calendar year. So we could put that on hold. But what happened is the group that was forming Omalate, which is African Heritage Inc., they went ahead and applied for a federal grant in the summer of 2023. They found out in the fall, so last fall of 2023, that they received a grant for $1.7 million. The only challenge to that was the school has to start in fall. And so we're busy right now working on opening Omalate Academy. She'll open at Huntley Elementary School. And so that's how that progressed. The group that's putting together HI is some internal staff in our district. They decided not to go after a federal grant. They decided to wait for the state to come back through with state grants. And that's what happened, but it happened as of January 1. So if you remember, we have to quickly get that on the agenda for all of you to consider in February. You did approve to be the authorizer. They sent in their grant request to the state. They found out last week that they have the $1.5 million, and that is to open in the fall of 2025. So 2 different paths. And as we go forward over the next 5 years, it'll look a little bit different for us. The federal government keeps African Heritage Inc. as the fiscal entity. And so the money all goes to African Heritage Inc. All communication goes to African Heritage Inc. It's a little bit more cumbersome for us as a district because we have to get that information and then we have to invoice African Heritage Inc. for any expenses we have. The expenses we have are going to be staffing. So we're hiring the teachers, the instructional coach. They'll all be Appleton Area School District employees, and then we invoice back to African Heritage Inc. The grants from the state, we're used to working with them, and they're a little bit clearer for us in terms of communication. The money comes to us. We're the fiscal agent as a school district. And so that's easier. And then all communication comes to us. And then the group that's organizing this, led by Pali Mua, you may remember, she worked in our district, Tai Zhang, and Mai Ku Her, principal over at Johnston. So they're really leading this work, but we're working closely with them, and the communication and the finances come through the district. So wanted to share that update. Again, this is not an action item. It's under board business just because you did take action in February. Any questions?
Once the grants that they've both received end, at that point, will they both operate like all of our other schools? There won't be any differences after that point, correct?
That's correct. That's often a question we get from the community about charter schools. They are not staffed any different than our neighborhood schools. They're not funded any different than our neighborhood schools. It's just the dollars that you have on the front end to open a school. And that's what the charter dollars are for. And then also, charter schools have some autonomy around curriculum, instructional models and so forth. But once the grant dollars go away, they function like any other school in our district.
Okay, let's move on. District survey results.
So I'm going to start with the employee engagement, the staff survey results, and then Nan will share the family engagement survey results. This may not be new information for you. It was shared in a video that I sent out to all staff last 2 weeks of the school year, but did want to go over it again just in case you had any questions about it. So I'll move relatively quickly through this information, like I said, because if you've seen the video, you're familiar with it. So let's start with the staff engagement survey. It starts with, we needed 322 responses out of our 1,950 staff for it to be statistically accurate. We had 668 responses. It's 12 questions, really more like 12 statements, 9 of which are specific to the school or the department that you work in, and 3 are more district broad general statements. It's a 5-point Likert scale. We can display the results tonight. We'll share by district, but we then do share, and we did this at Lead Learner last week with all administrators. So they will then roll it out to their staff. So all staff members will see the results of the survey that they took from the district lens, and then also from the department or school that they work at. And then Tech Services administers the survey for us. They do a great job. We used to pay Studer to do this work. Prior to that, we had School Perceptions do surveys. Now we just have our Tech Services department. Still remains anonymous. So here are the results, and they're very positive. And this, as you saw, was, and I'll go here, it was our district scorecard goal. So we wanted to go from 3.82 last year to 3.87. So if you look over on the right-hand side under 2024, we were at 3.98. So obviously the higher the score, the better. That's a very strong score. We look at where we were the first year we took it in the spring of 2019. That was pre-pandemic, and we were at 3.81. So we've not only eclipsed where we were prior to the pandemic, but we're well beyond that at this point. We also look at, and this is something that Studer always really focused on, was what percent of your responses scored a 5? So when you take 12 questions and multiply it by 668 staff members, about 8,000 answers. So out of the 8,000 answers, 35% of them were a 5. Strongly agreed with the statements. Our strength areas this year, there are 3 of them, the 3 highest scores. The highest score was my building administration or department supervisor demonstrates genuine concern for my welfare. So at 4.25, averaging between agree and strongly agree. And then this is just a thing I like to do, is always look at what percent agree or strongly agree. So generally are looking at this question favorably, and it's 81% of all responses. The next highest was my building administration or department supervisor provides me with good processes and resources to do my job. That was 4.19. And then 84% of responses agree or strongly agree. And then the third highest is my building administration or department supervisor provides the support needed to accomplish my work at 4.06. Looking at increases from last year, all 12 questions went up from last year. So again, very positive. The largest increase is in my building administration or department supervisor provides opportunities for feedback on decisions that affect my job. So that was 3.71 last year, was up to 3.95 this year. A lot of intentional actions go into this one, and this is one we really wanted to improve. This is an area that in feedback we got in last year's survey and previous year's survey is this was a very low score. So at 3.71 last year, moving up to 3.95, we feel good about that. That our staff feel like they're able to give more feedback on decisions that affect their job. And then the next one is, if given a choice, I would recommend that a parent select this district for his or her child. 3.47, this is our lowest score last year. And so it went up to 3.63. So again, improvement here. But as you'll see in one of my next slides, it's still an area of concern for us. It's still one of our lower scores. So then when we look at the increases from 2019, so now we're going back to that first year and pre-pandemic again. So the score that is the highest, has the highest growth is my building administration or department supervisor led staff meetings make efficient use of time and are productive. So that's gone from 3.72 to 4.04. Probably not the most important of our 12, but still we want to make sure we're using our staff members' time efficiently. The next one, in terms of an increase from 2019, is my building administration or department supervisor provides the support needed to accomplish my work. That went up from 3.78 to 4.06. And then the next one, my building administration or department supervisor demonstrates a genuine concern for my welfare. And so as you saw in a previous slide, that this is our highest score. So from 2019, we've gone up 4.03, 4.25. All right, opportunities. So these are our three lowest scores. So looking at how can we improve going forward. So the lowest score remains, if given a choice, I would recommend that a parent select this district for their child. And so at 3.63, that's our lowest, and at 58% agree and strongly agree. And so obviously that's an area of concern for us and something we certainly want to, if our staff don't believe in our district, that's really challenging to convince our families to believe in it. So that's something that we're working towards. The next one, my building administration or department supervisor provides feedback concerning areas for improving my performance. So even though it has gone up, like I showed you, it's still our second lowest score. So we've done better there. 74% agree or strongly agree. And then my building administration department supervisor provides opportunities for feedback on decisions that affect my job. Again, this is one of ours that has gone up quite a bit in the last year, and then also since the 2019, but at 73%, still one of our lower scores. Then we asked three questions. What is working well for the district? That's, we look for themes there. Throughout the comments, we got over 1,000 comments from staff members. Next one, what areas in the district could be improved? And again, we're looking for themes. What does it tell us? And then is there anyone in the district that you would like to recognize for good work? And that one's always really fun to read through because, they're often talking about colleagues, maybe their principals. So those are fun to read. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these because you have the information. I don't need to read the slides to you, but what you'll see here is on this slide, what's working well at the high school level. So those are the three themes that came forward on what is working well at the high school level. And then what areas could we improve at the high school level? And so just to save time, I won't read through all of them. You can read through them on your own. The next slide, same idea. It's at the middle school. So this slide is looking at what is going well at the middle school level. These are the themes that came forward in the comments and what areas in the school district could be improved. The next slide is at the elementary level. What is working well in the district? And so, some of the things that you'll see in here is this was our first year of having full day professional development. For the most part, staff like the full day PD compared to having to earn points and having late starts. And we put all that together in full day, but yet at the same time, we tried to do too much during the full day PDs. There wasn't enough time for staff to work together in their PLCs. We just threw too much content at our staff. And so that has come out in the survey as we can do a better job with PD, but do like the change. And you'll read some of the other comments here. And then elementary staff and, what are the areas the school district could improve? And so, some of these that you're certainly familiar with already: workload, student behavior, professional development, and then staffing concerns. So our next steps for this is, we've already begun this work, as obviously the leadership team is going to analyze the results, helps us set goals in place, and then actions to meet those goals around our employees and their engagement. And then we share, like I said, with departments and schools so that they can share with their staff. So that was a pretty quick run through this, but again, the information is all here. Do you have any questions on the employee engagement survey?
I was just wondering about the 68 responses. Greg, if there's a breakdown of who responded from middle school staff to the breakdown of that.
I don't have it. I can send it to you. Yep, we do have that because the data gets broken down by school and by department. So we do have that.
I had a question on one of the middle school slides. I just wasn't sure I understood the comment. It was teacher concerns about fluff positions affecting salaries and workload. And I'm wondering if you could explain that.
I would say that that comes out as district coaches. It's probably, sometimes it's referred to as middle management. They aren't management positions. That's the positions across our district that get them the least positive feedback on. I think a lot of times staff would prefer to see those dollars go into interventionists. And that's the feedback we get.
And then what do you do with the recognition comments that come through on the survey? Are those shared with individuals who are named?
We allow principals to manage that or department leaders to manage that. And so, yeah, we definitely encourage them to share. That's really positive, really good news. You know, it's really gratifying to hear from your principal that a colleague recognized you for really great work.
And then during one of our linkages meetings, we received a comment. Someone had indicated that the comment section was a relatively short number of either words or strokes, characters, and said that they had really started writing some positive comments, but couldn't continue it because they couldn't fit it in. So I'm just wondering, maybe that was a change from last year. It sounded like it from the comments that were made. Just wondering if there was an awareness of that and if that might be something that could be changed in the future.
Yeah, we can look into that. We haven't heard that. This is our second year of having tech services do this survey. And so it was administered the same way this year it was last year. But prior to that, like I said, Studer sent the survey email. And so we can look into that.
Last question.
Yeah.
Just wondering then, as you're looking forward to, trying to increase some of these scores, is there a consideration for reaching out to employees to, get suggestions for how some of those things might be improved?
So if it didn't come through in the comments, primarily we're looking at Julie King and the different work groups that she is working with. So she's working with a maintenance group. She's got a benefits group. There is employee relations group. Paras have a group, basically all of our employee groups, and that's where more specific feedback comes in. This is good, but this is representative feedback and ongoing discussions happen through our HR department.
I would add, Greg, that we also, and that came out as a positive comment in elementary, that we hold opportunity hours. Both school services and ACI have been out. That provides us the opportunity to have that in-person dialogue.
So we will move on to family engagement and Nan will share those results. And again, you saw most of this in that video, but there's just some things around comments that Nan will share.
So similar to the employee engagement, we give the family engagement in the spring, and we've now administered it 5 times. So it's given us some nice trend data. A survey link is shared with families via email and multiple reminders are provided. This year's survey, the 2024 survey, was identical to the one given in 2023. It was 9 questions using the 5-point Likert scale. And as you see, it mirrors the employee engagement with the 3 questions: what's working well at your child's school or school district, what could be improved, and then who they'd like to recognize. Again, tech services, just like employee engagement, has been doing this for us for the last 2 years. Do a great job, and they have provided us reports both for the district and the individual school sites. One of the things that by moving it from Studer to our own tech services department is we utilize Infinite Campus. So with that, we're able to break down the data into demographic groups. I mentioned before about the one question about one thing we noticed, because we can break it down by level. We can break it down by grade level, gender, socioeconomic status, our English learner students, talented and gifted, students with disabilities, and race ethnicity. So that has made the data analysis that much richer, because we can look both from a district level and from an individual site level to see, which demographic groups are providing us that feedback and how do they compare. This is a repeat. I already shared this with the scorecard, but we did meet one of the 2 district scorecard goals, specifically with the mean score going up to a 4.16. And then again, we increased the question related to frequency of feedback to families from school staff, but we didn't achieve that goal of 3.77. So if we look at overall, over the last 5 years, it was exciting to see these scores. We had a few less survey participants than last year, 2,588. Students had surveys taken on their behalf. So a parent could take, if I have a student at Badger Elementary and at Wilson, they can take it for each student, because the questions, the answers may be different depending on the student, the school, the grade level, etc. But overall, the overall mean was 4.16. And as far as the questions that scored a 5, it was 42%. So we were very pleased with these results. They're the highest they've been even pre-pandemic. So we're on the right trend. As far as the strengths that came out, the top 3 scores were related to my family is treated with respect at the school. That was our top score. The second score was my child's learning is a high priority at this school. And the third top was related to the staff members at the school demonstrated genuine concern for my child. All of this was the exact same strengths that came out in our survey last year in the exact same order. So that shows that those continue to be strengths for our district. But the good news is that in each case, these are our top 3, but they all went up, as you can see. So not only did they maintain as our strengths, but they also increased from 2023. As far as opportunities, our lowest score, which is why we selected question number 2 to be on our scorecard, is that they regularly receive feedback from school staff. That was our lowest score at a 3.74. And then our second lowest score was question 5. The school principals at the school are approachable and reachable. Again, same order as 2023, still focus areas of where we have opportunities for improvement. But again, in both cases, the scores went up from 2023. And that was the last slide. Are there any questions?
Yes, you did say that you were able to break down the survey based on demographics. I'm just wondering if at some point that breakdown could be shared out with board members.
If that's of interest, we can pull that together.
Yes, we've had several questions. We can share all that data with you. Very easy to do. I'll do it in a Friday update.
All right. Thank you. We are going to move on to 10C. First, monitoring report OE10, learning environment and student behavior. Mr. Hartjes.
So OE10 was monitored during the work session on June 10th. And again, Laura Jackson's on vacation, so I'm speaking to this tonight. At that time, it was monitored and there were 14 areas of compliance and there were 7 non-compliant. And if you remember last year after you monitored OE10, which is on the learning environment and student behavior, it's supposed to be expectations and not results. But after you monitored it last year, we felt like it really didn't do anything for us because it said that we were compliant, but yet we knew we had attendance and behavior challenges and we wanted to address those. So we put more, we revised it this year to have more results numbers in it, I guess I should say. And that's led to some non-compliance. Now, we discussed that at the last work session. What I wanted to bring up is that at the conclusion of the work session, you felt we needed to do a better job of explaining what are we doing about those areas of non-compliance. So the only changes from 2 weeks ago to tonight is we just add a little bit more in the narrative that was under the executive summary analysis. So just to give you an example, we were non-compliant on 10.6.5. And that was around panorama surveys and we wanted 4s and 5s. So we added in language that said the district will focus on providing support for students in transition years, 6, 7, and 9, provide an intentional focus on building connections with students during advisory time, providing the social emotional learning lessons with an emphasis on empathy. So that's where we're going to focus, is that we have incoming 6th and 7th graders that are new to the middle school and incoming 9th graders new to the high school. We really want to focus on those grades in terms of this one indicator. So we tried to share that type of information as far as what are we doing to address these areas that were not in compliance. So that is the just minor changes. And again, this is an action item. So you are asked to vote on it at this time.
Would there be, first I'm going to ask our board members, if hopefully you had a chance to read those additions that were provided in OE10. And if there are any questions about that, to bring them up now. I'm not seeing any positives or shaking of heads, nodding, I should say. Okay, then would there be a motion to approve?
I'm sorry, I
Okay.
have a question.
Perfect.
Just because, it was reported on the district's scorecard, the information about the gaps between Black and African American students and white students for out of school suspensions. And then, one of the main areas that was marked as non-compliant or compliant with exceptions was about similar data. And so I am wondering if there would be a way to present information to the board going forward that would have more insight into actions being done to address the issue and the impact of those actions.
Yes, absolutely. We can do that. And, most of that is being done at the 7 through 12 level through our STAR program, but also at the elementary, middle, and high school through our DI department, which is expanded. And so absolutely, we can share that. And, we have 3 different data points. We look at ODRs, in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension. So we actually had really good results this year with a reduction in ODRs for Black and African American students and in-school suspensions, but not out-of-school suspension. So just trying to figure out what level of data will help us improve is always a challenge, but absolutely we can share that information with you.
I just want to clarify, Nick, is this under one of the indicators right now? Can you tell me which one it is?
Yes, it was 10.3.2 and 10.3.3, I believe, are the 10.3.2 specifically talks about Black and African American students, and is it ODRs or out of school suspensions? I can't. Let me pull it up. One of those.
It is out of school suspensions.
Yes, the same. So that is basically the same data, just presented in a different way from the district score.
Correct. Yeah.
Um,
Again, we didn't change anything about compliance. We were not in compliance. So we're not changing that. We just add a little bit more detail.
but just so I understand, you want more detail added to this?
Not necessarily to the report. I'm just
Okay.
asking
Okay.
about this data, if we could get more information at future meetings.
Okay, so where I'm going with it, after, if we need to decide, do we accept the report as submitted? And if there's any then feedback, additional feedback that the board would want to add to it. So I just wanted to know if there was some additional feedback to the report, but it sounds like not.
Not for this monitoring report.
Got it. Okay, I just wanted to be clear. So I'm doing what, okay, so now with that, is there anything else about OE 10? Otherwise, could I have a motion to approve?
I'd like to make a motion to approve OE 10 as presented.
Second.
Okay, one last time, any further discussion? Then roll call, please.
Ed Ruffalo,
Aye.
James Bacon,
Aye.
Kay Eger,
Aye.
Chris Sauter,
Aye.
Ping Tao,
Aye.
Jason Kolpak,
Aye.
and Nick Ross.
Aye.
Okay, then 10D, monitoring report OE11. Again, this was discussed on June 10th work session. Motion to approve? Accepting the report.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion on it?
Kay Eger,
Aye.
Chris Sauter,
Aye.
Ed Ruffalo,
Aye.
James Bacon,
Aye.
Ping Tao,
Aye.
Jason Kolpak,
Aye.
and Nick Ross.
Aye.
Okay, then R3, essential life skills. Again, this was presented and discussed on June 10th. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any clarifications on that? Additional information? Okay, then roll call, please.
Jason Kolpak,
Aye.
Ping Tao,
Aye.
Ed Ruffalo,
Aye.
Nick Ross,
Aye.
James Bacon,
Aye.
Kay Eger,
Aye.
and Chris Sauter.
Aye.
Okay, then items 10, F and G. These are minor revisions to a couple of our coherent governance policies. And basically, this is changing the date of when we do the superintendent evaluation from January to June. And we will be doing the superintendent evaluation coming up, but we wanted to just have these policy revisions done before we actually do that. Are there any questions about that?
I'd like to make a motion to approve item 10F.
Second.
Roll call.
James Bacon,
Aye.
Nick Ross,
Aye.
Kay Eger,
Aye.
Chris Sauter,
Aye.
Jason Kolpak,
Aye.
Ed Ruffalo,
Aye.
and Ping Tao.
Aye.
Okay, then similarly, 10G, it's the change of January to June for the summative evaluation.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
okay. Any questions on that? Okay, then roll call, please.
Ed Ruffalo,
Aye.
Kay Eger,
Aye.
Ping Tao,
Aye.
Nick Ross,
Aye.
Chris Sauter,
Aye.
James Bacon,
Aye.
and Jason Kolpak.
Aye.
All right, so
Edgar,
Yeah.
before you ask for a motion on the next item, I do need to excuse myself from the discussion and vote on that item because of a conflict of interest.
okay. So the next item is 10H, the 2024-25 professional educator compensation increase. So I'm gonna have Julie King get us started with this.
All right, so the compensation increase proposals over the last 3 years, including this year, are the largest increases proposed in the last decade. We continue to recognize the valuable contributions and dedication of our staff in providing excellent education to our students. This year, consideration was given to complexity of dynamic labor market, economic conditions, further budget constraints, and contributions of our dedicated staff in the compensation proposal. The recommendation is to approve a total compensation increase for educators in the amount of $2,519,996. This constitutes an increase in salary as compared to 2023-24 total salaries of 3.11%. Item 10H, as negotiations are at an impasse, the district's final offer included a 3.11% total increase, which would constitute the following distribution. Each eligible educator would move a level movement on the compensation framework. That would be $1,511,940. And compensation structure adjustments of $1,008,056. That would, the compensation structure adjustments would be adding 700 to each level of the structure, and then adding an additional 1,000 to the high end of the compensation framework, which is level X. The compensation increase would result in the following: level movement averaging 1,350. Level movements range in our current structure from 1,000 to 2,200. An increase of 700 would be added to each cell on the framework. And the average increase for an educator would be $2,050, with increases ranging from 1,700 to 2,900, depending on the current level and placement of the educator. Separate from the average increases as commented above, compensation increases for master level would be approved through the Board of Education as estimated annual amount of $170,000 as supplemental compensation increases. That is item 10H in totality.
So if we can maybe just have some discussion about some of the points that were brought up for a public input, as well as we've had received some letters. And I think there are a number of themes that were, I think, consistent and brought up. Some of the points had to do with potential savings with staff turnover, as well as with not instituting the PTO this year. As well as we've touched a little bit on fund balance, but can you provide some clarification about staff turnover savings? Can you just provide go ahead.
I think if we could team that, I could address the PTO part and possibly Holly on
Holly.
Terry piece.
Great.
So in regards to the PTO piece, that was a piece for consideration. The 500,000 as stated in the item and the reports previously was if all employees applied for the max payout that they qualified for. So it was the 2 or 4 days. So really any dollar amount, because we are in a budget structural deficit, any dollar amount of increase would be additional deficit. So as an example, if PTO was approved, I think there may be budget questions that come up. There would be an additional 500,000 to the deficit should PTO have been approved. So it's not savings or dollars that were earmarked for PTO, it would be further deficit. Does that answer that question, or are there other questions on the PTO portion?
Yes.
So when we calculate the revenues that we're looking at, we take into consideration all revenues or changes. So obviously, state aid being our largest. We also have some referendum dollars that are still flowing through this year yet, but we also take into account every year the change in staffing, meaning retirements, or resignations that are potentially then filled with an employee with less experience or, you know, a lesser, on a lower part of the pay scale. It does factor in. We calculate it every year. Generally, we have an estimate. I know a number had been thrown out very early on in the process that could be as high as 700,000. I know when Julie and I looked at the numbers, it is about half of that for the current year. And it is included in the 6.5 estimated, 6.5 million estimated revenue that we're looking at for the year.
I also want to add that we have traditionally used those dollars. We've kind of said, okay, those dollars are going to cover the cost of master's degrees plus the WRS. So when we give a compensation increase of $2.5 million, the district also has to pay the WRS portion of that, which is 6.75%. And so those dollars and the dollars that go to master's degrees are not ever included in the compensation increase. We just kind of cover those increases with the savings, the revenue from the difference between a retiree who perhaps is nearer the top of the pay scale, who gets replaced by somebody who's closer to the bottom. So again, those are kind of expenses and a revenue we've kept separate from the straight compensation increases.
Just a clarification question. The last meeting where we did not proceed with PTO because we didn't feel there was enough acceptance. I had a real sense, though, that that proposal was in no way not going to move forward. We're going to continue to work on that next year. And if we can hopefully fine tune it a little bit, refine it, educate again more of the staff, we may find that number going up. So that $500,000 line item could very well be in next year's budget. And I hope it is, because I think the PTO is a good concept. We just need to maybe fine tune a little bit. Do I have a real sense of where we're at with that?
Yes, as far as PTO, it would continue to be considered. We did have to make a decision prior to the allocation for the 24-25 school year, meaning the allocation of how time is allocated to transition mid-year wouldn't be fiscally possible for us, as well as educating staff, that being a big change, and then being between two systems would be a challenge. So it certainly could be an item for next year to continue to come forward.
And I just have a question. I'm not sure if it's for you or Greg or maybe both of you. A concern, and it came through the public comment and the emails as well. This is the second year in a row where we've not had even an agreement as to what is the definition of base wages. And I think it's very difficult to have these negotiations when we're talking with each other and we can't even agree on basic facts. So I know the district has a position and the bargaining unit, the AEA has a position, and they're not the same. So how do we resolve that? Because otherwise I feel like year after year after year, this is going to be a discussion point. Is that something WASB can help us with? DPI? Do we need to bring in a third party? Because I understand it's a legal interpretation of Act 10. Obviously, some districts see it one way and other districts see it another. So how do we resolve that to everybody's satisfaction once and for all? So when we're doing negotiations, we're talking about compensations and retainage and those things, and not the basic definitions of what we're negotiating over. Curious as what your thoughts are.
I think one of the challenges is, just as we look to our surrounding districts and others, there's so many different factors in which compensation is reported on. level movement, what's included in level movement, what the structure is, if a district has a structure, because not all districts have structures. All those other components are very challenging. As I presented it this evening, over total salaries at the 3.11%, that is of actual salaries. Yes, there is law, there is current law, and then there is the interpretation thereof and how adjustments can be made in the future. That, as we discussed this year and as we negotiated this year, we did talk about total wages. So, and presented it within that number of total wages. It is something that can continue to be discussed and potentially resolved.
You understand this year, we have to go with the definition we have, but especially when DPI comes out and says, here's the max you can negotiate on base wages, we've got to have an agreement as to what that means. So, and I don't know the right answer. So I'm just looking for a way that we can all come to an answer that we can all be comfortable with. I understand where we're at this year is where we're at.
And I would just add that the revenue and the expenses of our district are going to be a challenge. We know that. We know that we had 2 straight years of 0 increase in revenue from the state that overlapped with high inflation. And so that's just not going to add up. Those numbers aren't. And so regardless of whether we're talking about base wage or not base wage, there's still a certain amount of dollars that we feel we can fiscally afford. And that number for us is the $2.5 million number. Certainly we wish it was more. You know, we wish we could compensate our staff members more, but we have to fiscally look at what can we afford. As Holly mentioned, we are in a deficit. And so right now, what's allowing us to do any compensation increases, knowing that we have a deficit budget, is the fact that we have fund balance to cover next year and then one more year after that. And then our fund balance will be gone. That 18 million that Holly talked about, then we're going to have to hope within the next 2 years, we see something different from the state legislature, because at that point, our fund balance will be gone and we're going to have a deficit budget that remains. And so whether we disagree on base wage, in my opinion, it's almost irrelevant. It's more about what revenue do we have that supports the compensation increases we want to be able to give and can give.
So I'll respond to that by saying, I agree 100%. I don't think we're in any way trying to be parsimonious. We're not trying to be, you know, stingy with dollars. We just don't have them. And as I've worked through the numbers, even on my own, I can see that within 2 years in the path that we're on, that 15 million will be, the 18 million will be gone. And then we'll be in a tough spot. So I agree 100%. We have to do, I'm not alarmed in any way, as long as we're prudent in the next few years and we look for ways to either increase revenues or decrease those costs, we'll be fine. But I do, like you, worry that if we do too much this year, it just accelerates that point of where we're having true deficits without enough time to make the necessary adjustments. So I am supportive of this. I would just like to not have to argue or have to discuss every year that definition. I just think the negotiations go better. So maybe that's a longer term ask, but I understand this year's, the numbers are the numbers and we have to live within them. But it seems like we spend a lot of time, second year in a row, we spent a lot of time just discussing which facts are correct. And I don't find that to be real productive if we can find ways around it. Thank you. I'll be quiet.
I think most of my points and questions have been made and addressed. Can you, Holly, though, speak specifically on the effects of this proposal on the ongoing structural deficit?
Thank you. Yeah, so some broad strokes, and I know the board has heard this before, and some of the folks in the room that were part of the meetings have heard some of this before, but very quickly, I talked about the 6.5 million coming in for revenue. Our expenses then, we spoke about a 2 million structural deficit carrying over from 23-24 into 24-25. We also are purchasing $2 million in the new reading curriculum between this year and next year. We have a little bit increase. We maintained some of the interventionists from ESSER, even though our funding is ending. We have health plan increases anticipated. Now, we're waiting for final numbers on that, but right now we are still targeting about 10%, which equates to about $2.5 million. The referendum increases for the year for STEM and for some of the expenses that we're incurring for the construction that's completed. That's in there, as well as operational increases. We're keeping that at a very minimal 3%, and it's going to be a struggle to keep that down. There's proposals coming in 10% or higher. We're doing our best to negotiate contracts and or find other resources. All of that added together puts us already at a $4.5 million deficit for the year, after taking in the 6.5 revenue. That's before we even talk about compensation increases. If we talk about the compensation, which we are obviously going to talk about compensation increases. If we look at compensation between $3 and $4 million, depending on if we're talking about strictly salary, or my lens, of course, is the overall, including FICA and WRS. Again, you're looking between $3 and $4 million. That puts our next year's structural deficit between $6 and $7 million. So if we go back to that figure of 18 million, we know we're going to lose 3.2 to 3.5 this year. That puts us at 15 million unrestricted. And then moving forward, like we had just mentioned, then between $6 to $7 million in structural deficit. That only gets us 2.5 years before our unrestricted balance is at zero. Now, I know we've had some discussions about, well, what does that mean? That still means we're sitting on $40 million. That's a lot of money. However, that puts us at 20% or lower of our fund balance compared to expenses or revenues. That is the low, very much the low end of our policy, as well as recommended from the DPI and the auditors. You get below that mark, that is where we will again have to short-term borrow for funds just to make payroll in November and December, when our cash flow gets very low. So those are some of the things that happen when we get our fund balance down to those levels. Sorry, that was probably a longer answer than you wanted.
Just to clarify, that 40 million though, that then you're referring to, that again, also is dedicated for other purposes. So it's not the unrestricted.
That is not the unrestricted.
So-
That 40 plus million is the restricted balance.
Right.
That is earmarked for very specific purposes.
Right. So, okay, thank you. Just wanted to clarify that. Any other questions?
I don't know that I have a question at this moment, because I don't know where we find more money in the short term. But I guess, and it probably isn't for now, but I guess I just feel like we need to start figuring out longer term solutions, so we're not in this kind of a predicament as frequently. I don't know if that means we should try to start thinking about a referendum. If we need to have some way of lobbying, obviously that's challenging. I know we've done that, but we can't control the funding we get. outside of referendum, and or just continue to find other ways to really show how much we care and value all of our staff, and I'm excited about the PTO conversations and stuff like that that have been happening. And I know it's not specifically what we're talking about here too. But I think it all matters together. And I just know these conversations in particular are very hard, and I hope we can start having conversations to get ahead of them instead of kind of finding ourselves not feeling like we're in a spot we want to be in this moment exclusively. So I don't know. No question. I just hope we can try to start finding other, solutions, I guess, to the bigger problem.
I can just speak to that real quickly. If you read the paper, you're reading about districts, there's three ways. You cut staff, you close schools, or you go to a funding referendum. So are we going to have those discussions at some point? Probably.
Yeah, and I guess, to that point, I just would like to try to start having them before we have to, because I think they're a lot harder to have, and you're backed into a corner when you have them only when you have to. And I guess that is my concern here, I suppose. So, but
I don't have a question either, but I just am really concerned. We're responsible to our community, both fiscally, but also in providing the best possible education for our students. And I'm concerned about calling something an impasse. Any salary adjustments to our budget obviously affects our budget, but I think we also have to look at how is this going to affect the people who are receiving the compensation. Each meeting, we approve resignations. 10 years ago, that was not the case. Occasionally, there would be a resignation, but we are doing that at every meeting. And I think sometimes we forget about the cost of losing good people, because we have to train new people. And people who come into the district are trained also by their colleagues. So that is an incredible amount of time on the parts of many colleagues. So when a new team member joins the team, not only do we lose the wisdom and experience of that person or the predecessor, but we also are bringing on someone who's brand new and often needs additional assistance by colleagues. That is an incredible time amount that's spent by people. So that adds also to the stress of current employees. So in addition to the fiscal impact that we look at for the salary, I hope we also consider the cost, which is harder to quantify than just the dollars and cents. But that is a cost not only in dollars and cents, but also to the morale, I think, of our employees and to their workload. So I am really struggling with calling this an impasse and not having some sort of an agreement. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
So Chris, if you don't mind, I'll comment on that. There's nothing pushing us absolutely tonight to vote on it. I get that. I'm okay if we want to talk a little further. I just know what we're going to talk about, because I don't think there's any more dollars. If there's other things that would help us not have an impasse like I'd rather have this be an agreement. I think that it feels better, and that I think the positive impact going into the year is worth a bit more time. So I don't mind further negotiations. I'm just not sure what to negotiate over, because I just know we don't have other dollars to put on the table. If there's other things we can talk about, or if they want to go back one more time based on everything we heard tonight and see if we can reach an agreement, I think those are all valid options. I just hope one of them can be successful.
It's also my understanding that the board has discussed the maximum that we are comfortable with, and it's not because we don't want to pay people more. It's just really that in 2 years, we will be forced to really be cutting staff or closing schools. Not a good option either. In short of additional money, it's my understanding that the last offer, there was no additional discussion of desired with the district's last offer. Can you respond to that, Julie?
I can respond. I can respond that the last offer as presented here, there was not a counter offer. There was a confirmation that based on the dollars, and as it was laid out, that we were at an impasse, both parties.
Okay, any other discussion? Otherwise, I will make a motion that we would implement the district's final offer for our professional educator compensation increase.
Second.
Discussion? I am not seeing any discussion. Roll call.
Jason Colback,
Aye.
Peng Tao.
Aye.
James Bacon,
Aye.
Ed Ruffalo,
Aye.
Chris Sauter,
Nay.
and Kay Eggert.
Aye. Okay. Then we will move on to 10I, the paraprofessional compensation increase.
So item 10I, the recommendation would be to improve a total compensation increase for paraprofessionals in the amount of $237,979. This would constitute an increase in salary as compared to 23-24 of 3.11%. As again, negotiations are at an impasse, the district's final offer included the 3.11 total increase distributed by first level movement on the compensation framework of 56,938, and then a compensation structure adjustment of $181,041, which would equate to 42 cents on each, a flat rate on each wage. That would be the district's final offer at this time.
Any discussion prior to this? Otherwise, their motion?
I'll just make a comment and then I'll make a motion. I think anytime compensations are not what we all would like, it's important, we talked about this before, that there be shared sacrifice. So it's 3.11, I think makes sense to do across the board so that we're treating everybody equitably. So with that being the case, I will make a motion to approve the 2024-2025 paraprofessional compensation increase of 3.11%.
Is that sufficient interpretation of the motion, or is it?
Yes, and it would
So
be
it's a-
implementing the final offer.
So the motion is to implement the
Yes.
district's final offer.
Do we need to restate? Second two.
Kayla says no. We'll trust Kayla. Any other discussion on this?
Again, I just want to state, I think our speaker earlier was very eloquent in her discussion about what it means to the individuals. So I just want to say that I would hope that we could do better and that we could move beyond an impasse.
Anything else? Otherwise, then roll call.
Peng Tao,
Aye.
James Bacon,
Aye.
Ed Ruffalo,
Aye.
Chris Sauter,
Nay.
Kay Eggert,
Aye.
Jason Kolpak,
Aye.
and Nick Ross.
Aye.
Okay, then we are going to move to A, which would be compensation increases for administrative assistant, administrative support unit, maintenance, and administrative staff.
Yes, so as outlined in the item, total cost would be approximately $607,000. And that would be a 3.11% increase for the groups.
I'll make a motion that we approve the compensation increases for units, for administrative assistants, administrative support unit, maintenance, and administrative staff. Make a motion that we approve the proposed compensation increases. Julie, you look perplexed. Did I mess that motion up? Okay. Is there a second to that complex motion?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, then roll call.
Ed Ruffalo,
Aye.
Peng Tao,
Aye.
Jason Kolpak,
Aye.
Kay Eggert,
Aye.
Nick Ross,
Aye.
Chris Sauter,
No.
Ed Ruffalo, or sorry, James Bacon.
Aye.
Okay, that completes our business tonight. The board does have a work session on Wednesday of this week. And is Dr. Harrison still here? This was Steve's last meeting? Oh, is he gone? Did he leave his last meeting early? Oh, no. He's in his office. Can we pull him up?
Steve Harrison, are you there?
All right, we'll let him off the hook. Well, in Steve's absence, I would like to acknowledge that Steve is leaving the district. He's leaving us for another opportunity, but also want to extend great thanks for the work that he has done here with us in the district and his leadership in curriculum instruction and assessment. And I know we will be missing him, but wish him the best. So, Dr. Harrison, sorry we missed you. All right, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, good night, everyone.